Narcissists trauma bond you. Narcissists make sure that you're addicted, that you're stuck to the toxic person. They do this over and over and over again to try to make sure that you don't actually get free from their grip, from their grasp. It's a lot easier to not own up to something, to be a coward, to run away from the truth, and as a result, leave you stuck and leave you trapped inside of a trauma bond. How do you break the trauma bond? How do you actually break free from the mindset, from the thought process, from the rumination, from the things that keep pulling you back to a toxic person over and over and over again? Talk trauma bonding for a moment. There's a lot of different aspects inside of trauma bonding, and we can talk about trauma bonding from all different angles. What I want you to think of at a very base level is trauma bonding is when you're addicted to the other person, when you're justifying their abuse to other people, and when you're trying to convince yourself that it's okay to stay inside of a toxic relationship, even though you know logically it's toxic. But emotionally, you're still in love with this person. It's almost like Stockholm Syndrome, not quite, but almost like the idea that you fall in love with your abuser and your captor, and you start trying to explain it away. You start thinking that maybe this person's going to change. You have hope that they're going to change. You see the potential of change, but you're left in the confusion in this limbo land of like, I don't really know what to believe because he says he loves me, but his actions say completely different. But when we talk about trauma bonding, there's a couple aspects that I want to talk about today, and we're going to dive into 5 stages of trauma bonding, how this actually works, how this actually happens, and how you get to a place of being like, hey, this is amazing, to now this is hell. Trauma bonding. Let's dive into the 5 stages of trauma bonding. The first stage is pretty simple. First stage is the great, wonderful, amazing part, oftentimes known as the honeymoon stage or love bombing. So the honeymoon stage is like this euphoric sense of like, we are amazing, we're the best thing ever, like there is no one else like that, like us, we are twin flames, we are destined to be together, life is perfect. Love bombing, you have the same aspect where the person is spending so much time, energy, attention, money on you to be able to pump you up. This is the pillar idea. He's taking you and he's putting you on a pillar, on a pedestal, and he's pumping you up. And he's like, you are amazing. This is wonderful. We have the best relationship ever. And oftentimes what happens is this is going on and you're starting to communicate this to other friends and family in your life. I just can't believe it. He's the most amazing guy ever. I could never ask for someone who's so like perfect for us. So like you see all this stuff, right? And so you communicate to a bunch of people that's putting this out there of like, this is amazing. This is wonderful. And it starts to be able to build level 2, which is trust and dependency. So you have the love bomb, you have the honeymoon phase that's bringing you in. It's reeling you in. It's the hook, right? The hook that gets you and the hook that brings you in. But then after that, there has to be something that keeps you. That's where it starts to be a piece of trust and dependency. There has to be a level of trust that you develop with this person. Now, oftentimes a narcissist is going to leverage this trust, maybe in some manipulative or sneaky ways. This could simply be involving you in different secrets, involving you in different things. So like early on in different relationships, I would involve people in certain secrets or things that would be shared just with us. As a result, it would start to build this bond. It'd start to build a connection that like we have this connection here. Call it an inside joke, call it like a secret, call it whatever you want to call it. But it's this piece of like, hey, we have a connection because only us know what we're talking about in this moment. These other people don't. And that would be a piece of trust. There would be a piece of trust in showing up a certain way. I'm going to support you. I'm going to love you. I'm going to care about you, all these things. And it produces a level of dependency. And dependency is not always a bad thing, but it's bad when it is the only aspect. Okay, so I'm not talking about like independent or codependent. Like you can be dependent on a person, but also be independent at the same time. Okay, it might sound a little weird, but what a narcissist is building is a codependency piece. It's a piece that you are dependent on him for validation, for attention, for worth, all of these pieces of telling you that you have value. This is where you advocate your value. You start to be able to look and be able to, let me give my value acquisition to another person. And he starts to tell you what you're worth. He starts to show you this. But he's already built this love bombing. He's already built this trust. And then you get to a place where you're like dependent on him. And then you can start manipulating, controlling you. Now, the third piece inside of the trauma bonding oftentimes is isolation. And isolation is twofold. It's either 1, self-isolation. Or it's 2, it's him isolating you. Now, the him isolating you, you're like, yeah, that wouldn't happen. That's not that big of a deal. Well, it happens very subtly. Okay, and when it happens very subtly, it often is a place where he's trying to be able to pit you against other people. Like, I can't believe you do that. I thought we were going to spend time together. All of a sudden, you have plans, and he's like, oh, that's the night that we were going to do this. And well, now we're not going to do it, but you already canceled your plans. Like there's a lot of different ways that he'll manipulate you without saying, no, you can't do this. Will you have some narcissists that tell you no? Yeah, absolutely. Not all of them will do that. They're going to be more subtle about it, trying to manipulate and confuse and control you at a very small base level. Now, then you also have the self-isolation, and you're going to do this to yourself. It's the ultimate form of manipulation because he's not doing this to you. He's making you do this. Yep, I said that. He's making you do this. And how this is actually working is oftentimes punishing you for what you do, but not in an overt way, but in a covert way. You get the silent treatment because you went out with your friends for a night. Yeah, you're like, I'm not going to do that again because that really wasn't worth it. Because I spent that time out with friends, I wasn't able to connect with him. Now, that's just one out of many examples, but it'll find small passive-aggressive ways to be able to manipulate and control you so you get to a place where you start to learn, that's not something I should do. Let me not do that because he gets this response. Let me not do that because then he rages at me. Let me not do that because then he accused me of cheating when I was just out with a bunch of girlfriends. So there's a lot of different pieces that you'll see that'll try to be able to manipulate, and you'll get to a place you're like, you know what? It's easier not to have the headache, so I'll just stay home. It's easier not to be around these people, so I'll just stay home. Because he doesn't like this person, I'll just stay home. Okay, we're just using that example, but there's lots of different ones. So like communication, talking, like a bunch of stuff. Okay, but I need you to understand you will self-isolate, and this happens so often. Because why wouldn't you? Because he's already got your worth, your value, your trust in one hand. So he's like, well, yeah, you need this. And so you're like, okay, well, I'll give up this so I can still be with you and still be dependent. Okay. So the isolation will happen either by him facilitating it or by you getting to a place where you self-isolate because of a response from him. So it's still around him, but we're trying to give you two examples. Now, the other piece is the next stage inside of it is criticism and gaslighting. Okay, this is pretty obvious because this is probably where you're at. Like you're seeing, I'm getting criticized all the time. I'm getting belittled. I'm getting put down. This is where he starts to be able to put it all on you. He starts to be able to get to a place where gaslighting becomes the norm, not just lying about a situation, but then projecting it onto you so that you know that it's you, that you're the one at fault, that you're the one that has the problem, that you're the one that there's the issue. And he starts to put and project all of these things onto you, and you're left wondering and confused, why is this even happening? The gaslighting is trying to be able to confuse you and manipulate you into thinking that there's things that you did wrong or that you didn't see correctly. So he's trying to be able to put and blame things onto it, but trying to manipulate you ultimately to believe his version of reality. Not truth, not reality, his version of reality. And he's going to try to manipulate that in any way that he can. So he's going to come with the criticism and the gaslighting. Basically, this is the part where he's starting to tear down your pillar. Like he's starting to tear down where you actually are. Be like, oh, you thought you were so amazing? Yeah, all these things that I said were amazing about you are actually your weakness and your flaws. He starts to chip this down. All of a sudden, it just falls out from underneath you and you crash down because all of a sudden the nice, loving honeymoon stage that you were on is no longer here. Now you realize in the moment, like this could happen overnight. This could happen over a period of a couple of months. This could happen over a period of a couple of years. There is no set time frame for this. You just might identify, I'm in one of these stages. Now, fifth stage here ultimately goes back to the ultimate power piece for narcissists, which is control. Because you get to the place that you don't know what to believe. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to act. You don't know how to respond. You don't know what's right, what's wrong, what's up, what's down, what's left, what's right. You don't know. This is a place of cognitive dissonance that leaves you in limbo. And limbo is one of the worst places that you can stay. Because when you're confused in this moment, you don't make a move. Just like when you're driving and you get confused, you're like, I don't know which way to go. You pause until you actually make a decision. Well, this is what happens in the relationship, but it's happening 24/7 nonstop. That you're stuck in limbo, that you're confused, you don't know where to go, you don't know what to move, you don't know how to grow, you don't know how to develop, and as a result, it leaves you stuck inside the relationship. So you don't know what to believe, you don't know what to do. You don't feel safe, you don't feel loved, but you also don't know what to be able to do. Because you're like, I don't feel safe, I don't feel loved, but if I go to someone else, it might be the same thing. But if I leave him, I can't because my worth and value are attached to him. Do you see how this like manipulates and it slides down really quick? So if you look at this, you've got the honeymoon stage, the love bombing, that ties you into everything and gets you hooked. Then you get into the place where you start to become dependent on him for the validation, for the trust that he's putting into your life and building you up. And then we get to a place that he starts to isolate you, pull you away. This could be done with even triangulation, right? Pitting you against other family members. Did you hear what she said about you? I couldn't believe that they talked like that. Did you see the tone? Like he had this tone when he talked, like all of these things, very, very subtle. Doesn't have to be huge, but very subtle, trying to be able to pull you away from other people inside the isolation. Then we have the criticism, the gaslighting, being able to control you in this aspect to get to a place where he ultimately has control over your emotions, your feelings, leaving you stuck mentally and emotionally inside the toxic relationship, not sure what to do, not sure how to heal, grow, and change and develop you. All right, does this resonate with you so far? We're talking about trauma bonding. We're talking about a couple of stages. When you're listening to this, what stage are you in? When you're going through this, like what aspect are you stuck in right now? Maybe it's the isolation phase. Maybe it's the place where you feel like completely confused and lost. There's so many different aspects inside of here. If you resonate with the trauma bond, this is exactly what I work with people to heal, to grow and develop themselves. Because if we don't, you will stay stuck permanently. If we don't actually fix the trauma bond, if we don't eradicate it, it will be the piece that leaves you locked in forever. So I want you to understand, like, we have to be able to work on this and focus on this to help you heal. If we don't do this, you remain stuck. You remain trapped. So if I can help you with this, I want you to reach out. Go to rawmotivations.com. There's an opportunity for you there to be able to schedule a call, be able to fill out an application. There's a couple different options because we want to make sure that you actually find the tools and the systems to be free, ultimately, from the toxicity that you're currently stuck in. Y'all have a blessed and wonderful day, and we'll see y'all next time. It's a lot easier to not own up to something, to be a coward, to run away from the truth, and as a result, leave you stuck and leave you trapped inside of a trauma bond. This is what a narcissist does over and over and over again. And when you believe the lies, when you believe the projections, when you believe all of those cords that are wrapped around you, you get stuck to a place where you're addicted. Are you addicted to him? The toxic guy that's in your life right here, right now. Maybe it's this piece that you've cycled away from him. You've broken up, you've gone no contact, you've gotten free, and then you've gone back. Maybe it's been where he's left you and then he's come back into your life. Maybe you've left and then you've asked him to come back. You've reached out, you've stalked his social media. Maybe there's all these different pieces that make you feel when you sit back and you look at the facts of the situation that you're crazy. I want to tell you right now that you're not crazy at all. But what you're dealing with in this moment is probably what we call a trauma bond. You see, this piece of trauma bond gets you to where you feel addicted, where you feel stuck, where you feel confused and lost inside the relationship, and you get to a place where you feel like you have to keep cycling back to this person over and over and over again. Maybe it's because he already defined your worth, he already defined your value, he already told you who you were or what you were allowed to do. But ultimately, this piece of the trauma bond ends up forming these bonds and these ties that end up tying you back to the toxic guy in your life right here, right now. Produces these feelings that make you feel addicted, that make you feel just trapped, that make you feel stuck. Make you feel like if you walked out of the relationship, you wouldn't know what to do. You don't even know who you are anymore. So what would you do without this person? It makes you feel like you're incapable of making decisions. Makes you feel like you are the crazy one. So many things get wrapped up inside of this piece of the trauma bond. We're going to break it down in a couple different ways today. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness of narcissistic abuse. I help liberate women that are trapped inside of toxic relationships, help them move from victim to survivor to thriver. Helping them actually move into a place that they're able to bring back their confidence, their clarity, and their certainty of who they are again. Understanding from this perspective what's happened, how to actually heal, and how to move forward with it. We have hundreds of women who have broken free mentally and emotionally and physically to find themselves liberated. It's this piece that we have to look at first called the trauma bond. If we don't deal with the trauma bond first, nothing else changes. Nothing else gets better. I want you to imagine for a moment that you broke your leg. And in breaking your leg, you decided, I'm not going to go to the doctor. I'm not going to worry about getting it cast on. I don't have time for that. And so you just decide to walk on it. Eventually, walking on it, it will get to a place, to a level that it gets healed. To a certain level where it might still cause pain. You might have a limp. It might kind of like feel bad, or you might have twinges in it before it storms. But there's still going to be this piece where it's not going to fully heal. The reason why it isn't going to fully heal is because simply it hasn't been taken care of. Like the actual break, the separation that happened in the bone, the actual fracture that was there didn't get set correctly. So as a result, everything you're building on top of it still is hurting you in a lot of different ways. This is what happens when we deal with the trauma bond. And oftentimes what you see inside of counseling and what you see inside of therapy where counseling and therapy will focus on a certain thing and a certain aspect of it to help a person grow, but oftentimes it won't actually help them heal to the level they need to. It'd be like you trying to go to the gym with a broken leg. Yeah, you can eventually grow and build muscle on it, but if it's broken, it's still broken. It's still not going to help you. We have to re-break the leg. We have to actually set it correctly. Then after it heals, we can start putting on actual muscle onto the leg. This oftentimes is the approach that happens inside of trauma bond, inside of people dealing with the trauma bond, how to fix it, how to work through it. People normally don't dive in deep into the trauma bond. So what is it? What does it actually look like? How does it actually break down? If we talk about trauma bond in a couple different ways, I normally narrow it down into 3 aspects. Now, is there more? 100%. There's more things we could talk about trauma bond. I'm just going to give you the main 3 that I see and that I believe on a consistent basis with hundreds of people we talk to. This is the main problem. When we're dealing with a trauma bond, one of the first aspects that's dealing with this piece of the trauma bond is this idea of cognitive dissonance. Now, cognitive dissonance at its base level is just holding 2 opposing thoughts at the same time. There's a dissonance between which thought do I do, what do I think, where do I go, what happens. This could be as simple as you driving and you having to make a decision. You're like, I don't remember, is it right or is it left? Okay, in that moment, there's a brief second of cognitive dissonance. Like, I don't know which one I need to choose. Like, it's almost like this indecision piece, or sometimes people refer to it as being stuck in limbo. When you're stuck in this type of limbo state, especially when we bring it into a relationship, this makes life confusing. This makes life feel crazy over a period of time, simply because you don't know what decision you need to make. Understand for a moment that a narcissist only needs to keep you confused to still have control over you. That's it. He doesn't have to go through elaborate schemes. He doesn't have to come up with this elaborate lie. He doesn't have to concoct a whole different narrative or story about himself or different version about himself. All he has to do is keep you confused enough that you don't make a decision, that you don't do anything, that you stay stuck in limbo, that you waffle back and forth, and he ultimately has control over you. So when we're dealing with narcissistic abuse, we're dealing oftentimes with the simple initial piece of, wait a second, does he love me or does he not? Does he care about me, but he doesn't show it? He says he cares, but he's cheating on me. So what do I believe? And this cognitive dissonance puts you in this place of limbo. Now, normal life, it's not that bad. Like normal life, it's not that bad of a thing to actually deal with. But inside of a toxic relationship, you're dealing with this 24/7. It's not like it's just once in a while. It is a constant piece of your reality. A constant piece of your reality that makes you feel crazy, that makes you feel insane, walking through this piece of dealing with cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance is one of the first pieces. It keeps you stuck, keeps you in limbo mode. One of the other aspects is intermittent reinforcement. And with the intermittent reinforcement, these are the highs and lows. These are the ups and downs, the great moments and the bad moments. You already know about this, and you might have referred to us as being on the roller coaster of this relationship. It's all over the place. You never know if the relationship is coming or going, if it is growing or if it's dying. You never have a clue. And this is simply to be able to keep you on edge, to keep you stuck, again, for a long period of time. Because what happens is you start to get ready to pull away. Now, a narcissist can sometimes sense this just energetically, or he can sense this because he knows the patterns and the habits of you. And as he senses it, he realizes you're starting to pull away. So let me do something nice. Let me love bomb you. Let me gaslight you. Let me do something that's going to make you feel better in the moment when in reality, it's not true. And so oftentimes a narcissist will feature fake. We'll try to give you things. We'll try to make you feel better. We'll try to connect on some level, not a deep level, just a surface level, to try to get what they want. Inside of this, it produces this aspect of a roller coaster. Highs and lows, great moments and bad moments. Great moments to keep you, and then they revert back to who they actually are. The bad, awful moments that happen. Now, consider for a moment that when we're talking about a trauma bond, it is made up of the lies. It is made up of the stories that he's been telling you and that he's been telling other people and that you've been telling yourself because of him. And so when these lies actually get laid around you, consider it being like a rope. It's like a rope that comes out of the narcissist's hand and extends around. It goes around you and it comes back to him. Okay, so it's like half circle that he's holding on to. Then this trauma bond piece is him establishing a lie. Maybe that you're not good enough. Maybe that you can't do this without him. Maybe that no one's going to love a single mom with kids. Maybe that you're not capable
of what you need to do. Maybe that you're bad at making decisions when you run a multi-million-dollar business. All of these things, he's going to continue to have these ropes that continue to go around you of these lies, of these stories that you believe. And he's going to start pulling and pulling and pulling. And this is where the bond gets tightened and tightened so much that you're not sure, how do I actually break free? How do I actually move past this piece that right now leaves me completely stuck, completely trapped? This is where we build the trauma bond. The trauma bond is built through the lies, through the stories, through the manipulations, through the beliefs that the narcissist projects on you and uses to pull you back, uses to hoover you. Then you're stuck in a place of the ups and the downs, of the cognitive dissonance, of not knowing what to actually believe and what's actually true. Now, in order for us to start breaking the trauma bond, in order to start breaking the lies and the stories that have been placed upon you, we have to get down to what are the facts of the situation. You see, facts start to break through the cognitive dissonance, start to destroy it completely, because you're wondering, does he love me, but he doesn't show it? Well, maybe he's just having a bad day. Okay, well, let's look at the facts of that. Okay, it can't be all bad days for the past 365. Something is different. He's cheating on you. Okay, now we actually have some facts. Okay, he's not demonstrating love. Okay, now we have some facts. There's no evidence of love. Okay, now we have some facts. We're dealing with facts. We want to put people into a place of facts. If you do not have facts, you will not have clarity. If you don't have clarity, you will stay stuck. You see what I mean? The trauma bond has to be broken with truth. This is the biggest thing that narcissists will not be honest about, is simply who they are and what's going on. Because it's a lot easier to not own up to something, to be a coward, to run away from the truth, and as a result, leave you stuck and leave you trapped inside of a trauma bond. This is what a narcissist does over and over and over again. And when you believe the lies, when you believe the projections, when you believe all of those cords that are wrapped around you, you get stuck to a place where you're addicted. You feel like you can't live without them. You move away, you disconnect, and then you start pain shopping, looking them up on social media because you don't know how to regulate your feelings. You don't know how to regulate your emotions. You don't know how to process it, how to work through it. You're left wondering, like, I don't know if I can heal from this. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if I can live without him. Even though, logically, it's toxic. Logically, he's not good for you. But emotionally, you're confused, you're lost, and you still want to go back many times on many days. If this is you right now and you're struggling with this, I want you to go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough because I want to help you heal and move forward. We've got a video for you there to be able to show you just what I do and how I want to communicate to help you understand that we have to break your frame of reality of what's currently going on. We have to help you heal from the trauma bond. We have to reduce and eradicate the triggers in your life that he's using to control you so that you can grow, change, and develop and transform into the person you're called to be. What does trauma bonding do to a normal person? Like, how does it mess them up? How does it confuse them? How does it screw them over? If you're new to the term trauma bonding, we're going to break it down for you real quick so you at least understand that and at least what it looks like. And I'm just going to give a quick overview. So when we bring up this whole piece of trauma bond, you need to understand that trauma bond oftentimes first is based on this piece of hope and oftentimes potential. Okay? Now, hope and potential oftentimes of him changing, him fixing himself, him getting better, the relationship radically changing, the relationship radically getting better. And you're like, I hope this will happen. I see his potential. Maybe he'll actually live up to his potential. You're also going to see this piece of like cognitive dissonance. Okay. And with cognitive dissonance, oftentimes what's going on is you're stuck between like a rock and a hard place. You're like, I don't know what to believe. Do I believe his words or do I believe his actions? Now, there's a million different examples and way more in depth we can go, which we do inside the clarity challenge that we run. But cognitive dissonance, that's like at its core, very basic level. It's stuck between two different versions of reality. And oftentimes you come up with a different justification. Well, he's just stressed. He's just going through a lot. He's just struggling with his alcohol, like different things like that to justify being in the relationship. And then the third thing typically is being locked in with these ups and downs. Oftentimes you'll hear this of like the more like bigger word in one sense of intermittent reinforcement. And these are the highs and the lows that are happening inside the relationship. It's really great and then it's really bad. And it's wonderful and it's really bad. He loves me and then he hates me. And so you need to understand when we're dealing with this piece of a trauma bond, all of these things actually come together and produce this cocktail that a lot of times we'll deal with that looks very similar to addiction. And you're like, wait a second, how does this look like addiction? Because at this point, you become addicted to the other person. Like you become addicted to how he's going to be, to what life is without him. You become addicted of like, I need this in my life. Do you see this right now? How many of you feel like you're addicted to the toxic person? Like type in me into the chat. Because I need you to understand so many people find themselves addicted to a toxic person and they're like, this can't be me. Like, I mean, of course I'm not addicted. And they justify it. They ignore it. And they keep thinking, maybe if I just keep going through life, I'll figure this out. And they don't. So you need to understand, if you're at a place where you're addicted to a toxic person, please reach out for help. What it does to you over a long period of time is quite devastating. We're going to talk about it in a couple different ways. Typically what happens is as you start to get addicted to this person, it slowly starts to erode your sense of self. Your sense of self, because you are less than if you don't have him in your life. So like he's threatened to leave, he's talked about leaving, and he's actually done it a couple times. And whenever he leaves, you're like, I don't know what to do. Because at that point, you've lost some of your confidence, you've lost some of your self-esteem. He comes back and forth, and that's the ups and downs, the highs and the lows. He tells you one thing, and then he does the other, and it leaves you in this confusing place, but you're still addicted to him. You're like, but I can't let go. This is where it gets frustrating, because then you have friends and family that are looking at you and being like, why can't she figure it out? Like, just leave him. Like, he's not good for you. Like, just break up. Just move on. And they try to give you different advice that oftentimes is well-intended, but oftentimes only just hurts you more. Because they don't actually get it. They don't get that they're dealing with a person who's struggling with an addiction. Now, think of it as someone who is struggling with alcoholism. And they're struggling to stop drinking. And it's just happening over and over. They might know, and they might get to the place that they know is bad for me. Like, it's not actually helping me be the person that I want to be. I'm not showing up for the people that I want to show up for. I'm not showing up for me when I'm drunk. Okay, like that's the idea. So they might get to a place where they know and understand that, but it doesn't stop the actual addiction, because it's an addiction at that point. And even though it's a choice, there's a lot of thought process that has to get underneath of like, wait a second, why am I doing this? What is it costing me? How do I actually change my thought process so that alcohol isn't the first thing that I run to? Because it's an active addiction that keeps pulling me back, keeps sucking me in. So this is the thing you have to understand is your friends and family, they don't get it. Okay, maybe they haven't struggled with addiction issues. Maybe they haven't been with a toxic person. So as a result, they don't get it. They don't understand how to be able to deal with this. So they might give well-intended advice that only pisses you off, that only hurts you more, that also isolates you more. Because you're like, well, if they don't get it, then I'm not going to talk to them about it. Now, besides the fact of you losing confidence, you losing self-esteem, there's also this piece of confusion that comes in where you start doubting not just your own worth, that's a huge piece of it, but doubting your ability to make decisions. Like doubting if you actually know what you actually know. You see this so many times when you're trying to run your business and you're trying to make decisions in the business and you're like, this isn't a hard decision. I've made this 1,000 times. Why am I struggling with it now? It's because when you're in this type of a toxic relationship, slowly pulls at you so that you no longer have the same level of confidence. This is one of the hardest things because sometimes people have to even step past their ego at times because they'll come into the calls and they'll be like, I'm not this person. And I'm like, I know you don't think you're this person, but currently in this moment, this is who you actually are. You don't have the confidence because that's why you're here. And it's hard because people are like, but this isn't who I've been. This isn't how I've shown up. And I'm like, I get it. And this also doesn't define your worth either way. This is just saying, hey, let's look at where you are so we can help build you forward into who you actually want to be. But confidence, like losing that sense of perspective of who you actually are, is massive inside of a toxic relationship. Now, the problem is once your mindset gets adjusted so much, it starts affecting every single aspect of your life. It starts cascading into all different areas. So all of a sudden your mindset goes, typically the first sense that goes is like spirituality, like your meditation practices, your grounding techniques, the stuff that lowers your anxiety and stress, those typically go out the window. Now, when that goes out the window, it typically emanates down into your body of like how you're actually showing up for you. You start sleeping in. You can't get enough sleep. You start stress eating. You start not going to the gym. You start not doing things that you know are going to be healthy for you. And you start just reacting to the feelings that you're having. Now, so many times when a person has been in a toxic relationship and they are trauma bonded, we will see many things that get shown in the body of what's actually happening. So like people that develop autoimmune disease that they never had any of these before. And people that start struggling in different ways that doctors can't even figure out because it's induced by the stress and the anxiety of being in the toxic relationship. Maybe you're in the relationship and you've started to have hair loss and you're like, this doesn't even make sense. Why would I have hair loss? Well, it's because your body actually knows the trauma that it's in. And so many people get confused of what's going on. They'll have extreme weight gain, extreme weight loss, so many different things that will happen and like rack their body. And they're like, I don't know what to do about it. And oftentimes nothing you can do will fix it until you actually get clarity and break off from this toxic person. And trauma bonding is this addictive piece that makes you stuck in so many ways. It'll ruin your business. It'll ruin your body. It'll ruin your sense of spirituality, your connection to yourself. It'll ruin connections with your family and with your friends, with other people that are in your life that want to help you, but they don't know how. If you're addicted to a toxic person, I want you to know that there is a way to be liberated from it. There is a way to be free. You're not doomed into this narcissistic magnet cycle that you will always be there. But what we can do is work on healing you. If we're able to work on healing you, what would that be worth to you? Would that be worth your time and your dedication to say, hey, if I show up for me consistently, I can actually change this? Or you can say, hey, this isn't worth it. It's not worth me to actually take the time to break this addiction because it's going to require intensiveness. A lot of times when people break an addiction, they check themselves into rehab. Like they go to a place to help them get clean. This is a part that you have to realize that if you don't focus on your healing intensively for at least several months to start launching like daily habits to help you move forward, it's going to be really hard for you to heal. Typically just going to a therapist like once a week is not good enough. And a lot of therapists out there don't actually understand this to the level that they're able to help liberate you versus just telling you to say a couple of nice mantras and to leave the person. Doesn't help when we're talking about addiction. Now, trauma bonding is not just addiction, but that is one of the best models to be able to put on it so that it makes the most sense and so that it comes across the most logical. It's an illogical thing that happens logically because you're dealing with a toxic person who's putting you under this stress, this anxiety, all these frustrations, and is leaving you in a place where you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to grow in this aspect. I don't know if it's even possible. I want to let you know today that it is possible. But you have to be willing to step forward and say, hey, I actually want to be free from this addiction. I want to make sure I can actually leave this person, that I can get my sense of clarity, certainty, and confidence back and move forward in a healthy way. If you want to do that today, then go to rawmotivations.com. Would love to be able to work with you. Love to help you move forward in your healing, your growth, and your development. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, like, rate, review. If you're listening on the podcast, share those with someone that might be dealing with this at the same time as well also. You never know when you could be helping someone else free themselves from a toxic relationship.
Hey, just want to jump in here really quick and say you might have been watching my content for a period of time, but you haven't taken the next step. You haven't taken the next moment, the next idea, the next thought to actually change your life. And I want to provide you with a couple different options. One of the ways is to be able to work with me personally inside the Thriver Intensive. What I do inside of there is help you break the trauma bond, eradicate the triggers, and move forward in the healing process. You got 24/7 access to me. You've got access to other women who are going through it, access to other coaches, but a support system that you need to finally break free once and for all, and to make sure that you don't go back, that you don't interact with them again, and that you finally find peace. If you're interested in knowing a little bit more about this, then click on the link down below, but it'll be rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. You'll be able to hear a little bit from me. You'll be able to hear a little bit from my wife and be able to hear a little bit more about what I do to help you move forward. If that resonates with you, click on the link below, rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. Narcissists trauma bond you. Narcissists make sure that you're addicted, that you're stuck to the toxic person. They do this over and over and over again to try to make sure that you don't actually get free from their grip, from their grasp. Now, this is coming from the phrase and from the perspective of a narcissist, because I'm a diagnosed narcissist and I'm on here to help liberate people from the toxic abuse that they've been in for such a long period of time. Not knowing, not understanding that if you don't get free, this will impact you for a long period of time. This will impact generations to come. And oftentimes your kids, if brought up in a narcissistic family, in a narcissistic household, will either become narcissists themselves, or they'll become codependent and start getting and falling in love with narcissists down the road, because that's what they're used to. That's what they continue to see. This peak that happens inside of narcissistic relationship is where a narcissist gets you addicted to him. Like, he gets you addicted where you feel like you can't do anything without him. Like, you can't move on without him. You can't grow without him. You can't actually do anything without this person. This oftentimes is what we refer to as being trauma bonded. And trauma bonded typically comes in different fashions, different ways, but I want to illustrate it in maybe a different way than what you've seen before. So if you're watching on YouTube, great. If you're listening on the podcast, you won't see illustrations. So check it out on YouTube sometime. So when we're talking through this piece of a trauma bond, a lot of times, consider this as being like a rope, okay? Consider it being like one singular rope. And what happens is when a narcissist has one singular rope around you, it's one story. It's one singular lie. It's something that they've been telling themselves, they've been telling you, or they've been telling other people for a period of time. It's something they've been telling you or telling other people for a period of time to convince you to stay stuck in the relationship. Now, the problem is when you're with a toxic person, it's not just one lie. Instead, it's another one. It's another one. It's another one. And all of a sudden, you've been with this person for such a long period of time. This rope, this one singular rope, is now this giant cable stretching back and forth, tying you. Now, the hard part is because this has so many, and we're talking like hundreds and hundreds of lies, hundreds and hundreds of stories, hundreds of things that keep you stuck to the toxic person. It feels like it's impossible. It feels like it's unbreakable. How many of you are struggling or stuck right now inside of a toxic relationship and you're like, I don't know if I can actually be free from this. I don't know if I can actually liberate myself because the bond, the tie that I have with this person is so strong. Like, maybe you've invested so much time, energy, money into the relationship. You're just like, I don't think I can even cut this off. Like, who am I without this person? Like, is it possible for me to actually be free from this person? You're probably thinking today it's not. That's why you've been stuck in the relationship for a long period of time. Or you've already left the relationship and you still feel stuck. You still feel mentally addicted to this person. This is what those ties, this is what these bonds actually do. They make you feel like you're addicted. Addicted to toxicity. And what happens is you're addicted to this person. You're addicted to how it feels. You're addicted to what it looks like. You're addicted and you're like, if I leave, I'd still go back. Like, he left me. If he came back today, even though he cheated on me, even though he hurt me, even though he put his hands around my neck, I would still take him back. Why? Because you're addicted. Because this trauma bond that continues to hold you. So let's take a look at it in a different way. Consider this whole aspect with the lies. I want you to consider it. We'll do it this way. Let's say this is you over here. All right? This is you. And over here, we're going to say this is the narcissist. Now, the narcissist has this rope in his hand. Okay? And this rope ends up being something that comes down here, circles around you, and goes back to him. Okay? And we have this rope. We have this lie. You are not good enough. One single one. Sometimes that's the base of the lie that the narcissist tells. But there's millions of them. There'll be another lie. And another lie. And all of a sudden, that rope that we just talked about ends up being a giant cable that has you trapped. And this is the part where you try to leave, and you're like, I can't even leave. He's like sucking me back into the relationship. He's like pulling me back to him. Because there's so many bonds, there's so many ties, there's so many things going around you that are telling you, nope, you can't do this. You're not good enough. You can't do this without me. No one's going to love you. No one's going to care about a single mom. Nobody's going to care about someone who's moving up in business, but you don't have any confidence. You don't have any self-esteem. Who would even want that? You're oversensitive. You're all these things. And so there's going to be lie upon lie upon lie that a narcissist tells you to keep you stuck. The hard thing is he's telling you these lies and putting you down. He's also telling you other lies. That he's going to change. That he's going to get better.
This stuff will be different this time. And so as he sucks you back into the relationship, he's normally selling you a different version of himself, saying, hey, it's going to get better. I'm going to get better. Life's going to be great. And you come back into the relationship, and then you realize 2 weeks, a month, 2 months later, that he's the exact same person. But he was using those lies. He was using those manipulative, like ties that are going around you to pull you back to him. He's pulling you back with lies, with stories, with different beliefs, with different thought processes that are going to hit your mind, making you think that you can't do it on your own. Now, the hard part is when you look at this, there is a lot of ties. There's a lot of bonds. Even if we look back up here, there's a lot of these lines. Consider this aspect here. Let's do it again, okay? Consider this aspect. You've got a line, a line, a line, a line, all of this creating this giant thing. Now, here's the hard part. Is you're like, how do I actually see about breaking this? Like, is this actually possible for me to be able to break? Like I said, this feels like it's unbreakable. So look at this. This line is now like solid. You're like, there's no way I can break that. Let me tell you right now, it's true. You can't break it. Not all at once. It's impossible to break all at once. Because you saw how many were there. Just right now, it's probably like 20, 30, 40, 50 lines. But over the years that you've been with a narcissist, tons. So what do we have to do? Okay? Feels like it's unbreakable. Here's what we need to do. We need to break the lies. Like, break the things that are actually controlling you, manipulating you, holding you hostage. Break that so people are able to see, like, wait a second. Like, if I actually break free from this lie, I'll be able to be free. Now, the hard part, like I just showed you, is there's so many of them, right? And this is where you get overwhelmed. You get overwhelmed, you're like, there's no possible way I can get free from all of this. And once you understand it doesn't happen overnight, and this is a journey. This is a process. Most people start to think that, like, oh, it'll be better. I can work through it. I'll just figure it out on my own. Time will heal these wounds. And I want to let you know that's not true. Time is not on your side when you're dealing with a narcissist. Time just oftentimes means it's going to take a longer time for it to fester in your mind. But that's it. It doesn't really mean anything for healing. That's like saying, hey, my bone is going to set itself if I just give it enough time. It'll just magically set itself. It might set itself, but be completely wrong. Because it hasn't been actually set and corrected. This is the hard part. People get discouraged. They look at it and they're like, it's too hard. It's too difficult. It's not possible. I'm here to tell you that that's completely a lie. That the narcissist wants you to believe so you can stay a victim and captive to him. Does it take time? 100%. Is it easy? No, it's not easy at all. Can you be free? Yes, 100%. The thing you need to understand is as we look at these lies, they don't get broken all at once. They get broken one at a time. So as we back this up, I want to be able to see, like, as we actually break the lies here, look at this. Doesn't look like much is changing, does it? Because right now you're looking and you're seeing only one lie disappear at a time. And this is where people, they start to give up. They're like, wait a second, it's not actually getting any better. Like, it still feels the same. I still feel like I'm stuck. I still feel like I'm trauma bonded. I still feel like I can't actually be free. And you're like, wait a second, I don't think I can be free. Doesn't seem like it's working. And sometimes we have to take a look and we have to say, wait a second. Take a look back at where you actually were. Do you see the difference? And people are like, oh, yeah, I do. And I'm like, do you see the difference now? Oh, yeah, I do. And all of a sudden you start getting to a place where you become free. You see, this process isn't a fast process. It's not a short process, but it is a process that works because we've seen it liberate people over and over and over again. But we can't do it by scanning out and just looking at the macro of this is too impossible. There's too many ties to this person. There's too many cords wrapped around me. There's too much of the trauma bond that's there. But instead we have to say, hey, let's just look at one. Can we give you a daily victory of just looking at one and working on eradicating one? That's it. We're not going to get rid of them all. We're not going to deal with them all. We're just going to deal with one. Can we do that first? And so people do that with one, and then they start moving forward and they do it with a second one. And they start moving forward and they do it with a third one. They start moving forward and they do it with a fourth one and a fifth one and a sixth one. And all of a sudden they start to pick up this momentum because they start to see that they're growing, that they're changing, that they're transforming from the inside out. But it all starts with a decision to make one. The hard part is sticking with it. Well, the piece I highlighted a week or so ago, we're talking about consistency in the healing, is that's the name of the game when we talk about healing. It's about you showing up consistently for you. And when you looked at that illustration, when I had all those lines there and I just got rid of one, people are like, yeah, this doesn't work. Like the bond is still there, like it hasn't broken. I'm like, yeah, what did you expect? You've been in the relationship for 5 years. It's going to take longer than like 5 days. Can we make a lot of progress in 45 days in the Clarity Challenge and 120 days inside of the Thriver community? Inside of Thriver Launch was a year program. Yeah, we can make a lot of progress. Majority of people that are working with us for a year aren't even dealing with narcissistic abuse because they've already broken free. We're working on maximizing who they are, how they're developing their businesses, their new relationships, their life in general. But that all started with a decision, one singular decision to eradicate one lie, to eradicate one story, to move past one rope that was holding them hostage, and then to do it again, and then to do it again, and then to do it again. You see, consistency is the biggest thing that will help you as you're on your journey of healing. It's going to be the easiest thing to quit. It's going to be the hardest thing to keep showing up for you every single day, but it gets easier. Because you start to see the bonds break away one piece at a time, starts to build up your momentum. It starts to make you realize that healing is actually possible. That's why when we try to bring you into any of our communities, we're like, hey, show up for you, show up for you, show up for you, show up for you. And you're like, whoa, I'm starting to show up for me. We're like, yes, we told you that because we were trying to make you do that. Because all of a sudden, if you show up for you, you start to realize that healing is possible because you're in control of it. He doesn't control you. No one controls you. You control you. But when you let everybody else dictate and control you, you become a victim of your circumstances and a victim to the reality that other people are controlling you. All this comes down today with trauma bond is a narcissist has all these ties and ropes and bonds around you. You have the choice of will you actually break through one of them today, a second one tomorrow, a third one the next day, and so on and so forth. Because that's the path forward. Is it easy? No. Is it super fun? No. Does it take a while? Yeah. But does it actually work? 100%. And we see people that are liberated every single day. If you want to see how I do this and how I coach people, go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. Because I want to equip you with the tools and the knowledge to help you move forward in your healing today. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness, growth, healing, and change. Okay, so what we're going to talk about first is we're going to talk about cognitive dissonance, and we're going to talk about the trauma bond because they actually go hand in hand. So I want you to think of the concept of the trauma bond itself is fed or kept alive by this idea of intermittent reinforcement. Think of it as like as you'd see something on like a wave meter or like a graph, like up, down, like the waves that come in, like up, down, up, down. That's the intermittent reinforcement. And we see that happen long term with a narcissist that keeps you stuck, that keeps you in the place of like, oh, it's good. Oh, now it's bad. Oh, it's good. Oh, now it's bad. Oh, they're changing. And then they're not changing. And the back and forth. And so the intermittent reinforcement is kind of like the baseline of like, hey, we need this to continue moving forward so we can trap you in this idea of a trauma bond. The thing with intermittent reinforcement that gets really confusing for a period of time is you start to equate the lows with the highs. You don't start to equate the highs with the lows. You do it the exact opposite. Okay, so you get to a place and you're like, wow, life is awful, but oh, life's really great. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, life isn't that bad. Okay, so the intermittent reinforcement is the thing that like gets you to a place of like, wait a second, like this is continuing forward. What's going on? Like, are they actually changing? Are they not? Are they getting better? Are they not? Like that kind of like up and down piece. Okay, so that's the intermittent reinforcement. Think of that. That's the trauma bond, like sustainer. Like that's the trauma bond's gas. Think of it that way. Like that's what keeps it going like long term. Like it's not something where you have someone who treats you like awful and you're like, oh well, I'm not going to be around that person. No, they treat you awful and then they treat you great and then they treat you awful and then they treat you great. Okay, so that's just baseline trauma bond. We're talking about intermittent reinforcement. That's the gas that keeps trauma bond going. And then we need to bring in this aspect of hope and potential, and then also this aspect of cognitive dissonance. Okay. When we're talking about hope and potential, it's the idea that I hope this person is going to get better. I hope this person is going to get fixed. I hope this person is going to get aware. I hope this person is going to change. I hope all these different things. I see the potential that they had. I see the potential that we had as a couple. Like I'm all like connected. Like I want this back. So the hope and potential, it locks you into the possibility of something happening, but not the reality that nothing is. And so when you're dealing with this, it's the thought of like, maybe this will happen, maybe there's a change, and you get locked into this idea that a lot of times is very similar to addiction models of addicts that get so excited for the high, but when the high is actually there, it's not as exciting as the anticipation before they actually get to it. That possibility is more exciting than it actually happening, because it doesn't happen. It's just that idea of like, oh, this is going to happen, and it breeds almost like this addiction aspect. All right, so we've got the trauma bond. We've got the trauma bond with the intermittent reinforcement. That's the gas that keeps it going. And then we have the hope and potential. That's the piece that's like supporting it. Okay, that's the piece that's supporting the trauma bond, saying like, nope, this is actually here. Okay, the other piece that you guys have put in here that I want to touch on is the idea of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance, there's a whole many different things inside of the NARC app. We actually had one of the months when Carrie McAvoy came on the NARC app, and she spoke and did a fantastic job just talking through cognitive dissonance, explaining it, all this kind of stuff. When we think about cognitive dissonance, I want you to think of, first and foremost, on the very base level, it's the idea of having two opposing thoughts, holding two opposing thoughts at the same time. Now, this could be as simple as going to a store and be like, do I buy this sweater or do I buy this sweater? Like, do I purchase this or do I purchase this? And then it gets elevated to the next level of like, wait a second, I'm getting close to having no money left to pay my rent. And there's this amazing deal that's at half price that I really like. And, there's that cognitive dissonance of like, oh, which one do I choose? It's that like in between. It's almost like that limbo land of like, which do I choose? I'm not sure which I should actually do. When you get this in a narcissistic relationship, you're stuck in between 2 points of like, do I believe their words or do I believe their actions? Like, do I believe what I see or do I believe what they're telling me? Like, which do I actually believe? And it starts to confuse you, and you're like, okay, well, I can make this decision, but they might rage out at me. Or I can make this decision and, well, they might give me the silent treatment. And so like going back and forth, it's like, which do I actually choose? And so that limbo land is really difficult for a lot of people in a narcissistic relationship, because it produces high anxiety, produces high stress. It gets you to a place where you're like, I don't know what to do, and I don't know what's real anymore. That's the idea of cognitive dissonance. Now, what I want to explain is a little bit further. A lot of times I don't hear people talk about this, and I want to just expound on it just a little bit more, and then we can dive into some more topics that you guys want to talk about. Okay. So when we're talking about this cognitive dissonance, I want you to really concentrate for a second and think through the idea of the toxic person, the narcissist, the whoever's in your life, looking at you and saying, I love you, and then they slap you in the face. I love you, and then they slap you in the face. I love you, and then they slap you in the face over and over and over again. And this is what's happening mentally, emotionally, sometimes physically in the relationship that you're in. What this is doing is, over a prolonged period of time, it's telling you three things. Either one, this is what love is. Sometimes you already have that perception and that idea because of your upbringing, because of the perception that you've been given based on the family that you grew up in, that this is what love is. The second one is the idea is this is all you're worth. So like you can go find love with someone else, but it's never going to get better than this. It's only going to be this good. That's the idea of like that continual back and forth. I love you, then slap you in the face. The third one is the idea that this is the price you have to pay to be able to get to the love. This is the toll. You have to go through this. You have to pay this price to get to what you want. Maybe if I continue going through this, I'll eventually get to the spot where they get it. They figure it out. It's a good relationship, marriage, whatever it is. So when we're talking about the trauma bond, we're talking about the intermittent reinforcement, that it is a gas that keeps that car going. We're talking about the hope and potential. Let's say they're the tires that keep that car on the road. And then we're also talking about the cognitive dissonance that locks it in cruise control, saying this is going to happen no matter what. That's that aspect of the trauma bond. Just as a shameless plug of like stuff that's actually coming out inside the Clarity Challenge, we go into that in depth. We're actually coming out with another course that's going to be released by the end of January, because I'm like pushing our team on it a lot. But it's going to be released by the end of January. That's going to be 7 days. It's going to be like a fifth of the price of the Clarity Challenge. And it's also going to be 7 days to give you an idea of like what's actually going on and like how much it can actually help. And the cool thing is like, it's different than some of the stuff in the Clarity Challenge. It's going to be kind of like the precursor to it, but it like is opening up, and I talk through different aspects that I don't even talk through in the Clarity Challenge of trying to help answer some of the hard questions that people struggle with. Am I the narcissist? Am I at fault? Like reactive abuse, all those different pieces there. Okay. Trauma bond, trauma bond, trauma bond. How do you break the trauma bond?
Okay, so I'll give you the short answer. Okay, number one, it's not time. Number two, it's not knowledge. Number three, it's not space. You can see how a lot of advice out there doesn't work. Like, oh, you'll get over it. Just give it time. Time heals all wounds, all that kind of stuff. That's a bunch of BS. Okay. At the end of the day, the people that actually heal their trauma bonds and glow up like in a crazy amount, like glow up a ton and continue moving forward, are the ones that actually learn how to get super real with themselves and to be acknowledge the stories that they believe. Now, stories are a fancy and a nice way of saying, what lies do you believe? So I want you to think of a concept. I don't have anything here to be able to show you. I want you to think of a concept of the narcissist holding a rope. Okay. And so I'm the narcissist. Okay. So like holding the rope, and I take the rope and I take it and I put it over you and I pull back. So I got both ends of the rope. One is going around you and is coming back to my other hand. And I'm pulling you back to me. Okay. This narcissistic Hoover idea. Okay. But the idea is like you're stuck inside this trauma bond. Inside this one rope is a lie. Is a lie that I've told you, is a lie that you believe because of stuff that I've put out there, whatever it might be. You're not good enough. Nobody's going to love you. Who's going to want to date a single mom? Like whatever it might be. Like this is going around and it's locking you in. That's just one of them. Times multiple stories, multiple years, and you've got thousands of ropes around you that the narcissist is pulling you back. Each one of those is a lie that typically you believe. A lie that alters your reality, and a lie that makes you think, I can't get out because of X, Y, and Z. I can't move on because of X, Y, and Z. Everybody's story different. Everybody has thousands of them. Once you're able to acknowledge, one, that you have stories, and two, to be able to get to the truth of what is real and what is false in the story that you're believing, that's when you start breaking free. We have a whole system that we teach in Raw Motivations of going through the process of helping people understand, hey, what is the trigger that you have? What's the emotions that are coming out of it? How are you feeling about it? And what does that actually reveal? What's the thought? What's the story that you're believing? And then from there, we're able to dive under that and say, okay, let's compare that to the facts. And then what is actually true? You've heard the phrase, the truth will set you free. This is so true. But how we look at it is the truth is the same thing as the facts. Okay, once you understand the facts, that is what realigns the story that you believe and helps you rewire your mindset. That's the only way I see people get free of the trauma bond is they end up rewiring their mindset, whether that's through a systematic process like we have inside of Warrior with the smaller challenge, with the clarity challenge, like a systematic process, or whether it's like they get to a place where they're like, I'm done. This is something that I'm like not going to tolerate anymore. And they change the mindset. They change the concept. Because until you can actually come to terms and like view the truth of that person, you're always like stuck. Have you developed a trauma bond with a narcissist? If you don't know what that is, I've got some videos on that about YouTube, like almost like the idea of like Stockholm syndrome, where you're addicted to that other person, where you're like, you're that person you want to be with, but you don't want to be with, and there's all this back and forth, okay? But a lot of times people want to take it a step further and ask deeper questions on not just if you're with a trauma bond, but does the narcissist actually know that they're making a trauma bond? Do they actually know that they're constructing or fabricating this whole aspect to latch onto you, to keep you in the relationship, to trauma bond you to themselves? And a lot of times people ask this question because they want to know, like they want to know how intentional is it? And the intentionality piece is huge with a lot of people. Like, wait a second, were they intentionally trying to destroy me? Were they intentionally trying to break this up? Were they intentionally trying to latch me into this relationship? Well, we're going to dive into a couple different things and what is actually going on behind the surface in this video today. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness, growth, healing, and change. We do it on all the different platforms: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. If you don't follow us, look us up under Raw Motivations, or you can listen on the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, anything out there. If you want to listen to the wife's perspective, how it works being with a narcissist, how it works like in our past relationships with like everything that we've gone through and the ups and downs, the pitfalls, the good, the bad, all that kind of stuff. If you want to hear some of that, would love to be able to interact with you on our podcast that we actually are co-hosting together. And that's Trauma, Drama, and Life. So feel free to check that out under Apple Podcasts, Trauma, Drama, and Life. Myself and my wife, Kayla Taylor, we're talking through some of the stuff that we deal with on a day-to-day basis and some of our journey. Would love to interact with you there. Feel free to send in some questions, DM us, anything like that. If you want to talk with me one-on-one, would love to help you and would love to coach you through the process of breaking free from a narcissist. The trauma bond is real, and it's really hard for a lot of people to break through because they have in their mind, I know logically I don't want this person, but I still want this person. I still want to interact. I still want to be with them. I still want to see them, kiss them, hug them, hold them, whatever. And they're like, I don't understand why. Why do I feel this pull? Well, I work with people on a day-to-day basis, help them rewire their mindset to actually get away from that person, break the trauma bond, and not go back. That's the goal of building those healthy boundaries and moving forward. Last off, if you haven't had a chance to be able to check out the app that we have, it's just Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Community of like-minded people to help people heal, grow, and change with weekly lives, with monthly coaching, where you can track your no contact, where you can journal, like all those things that are inside there with courses and exercises and more things coming. All those things are there under narcapp.com. So feel free to check it out, NARCAPP, narcapp.com. Would love to interact with you. Would love to have you join. That way you can actually see that community and have people around you that know what you've been through and can help support you on your healing journey. Well, when we're talking about trauma bonds, the biggest question that comes up when we're looking at the narcissist side of like, do they know that they're actually making a trauma bond? Do they know that it's actually happening? Well, I think first off, I want to set up the idea that the narcissist knows that they're making a bond. Now, whether they know it's a trauma bond, that's the difference there. Narcissist views a lot of times making a bond as being a connection with another person. So for a narcissist, they're not really looking and seeing it being as trauma. They're not really looking at it being a negative thing. I never thought anytime I was developing a trauma bond with another person that I was looking at it being like, hey, let me make this negative thing. It was like, no, let me build a connection with the person and keep them in my life because I didn't want to lose them. And so a lot of times when a narcissist is looking at creating a bond, they're thinking of connection. But the problem is the manipulation piece turns it up even more, that connection doesn't matter how it's made. It just matters that there's a connection with someone, oftentimes using any means necessary. So say, for instance, music, movies, dislikes, likes, things like that a lot of times a narcissist won't like before and won't like after, but all of a sudden will magically love that artist or that movie or something that you like. They'll magically like that just for you, but in reality, they don't. Now, some people get confused on this. They're like, but wait a second, but what if they found something they liked? Okay, we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is even people that we've known that do not like something, that have badmouthed it, and then all of a sudden change it and morph it as to be part of their mask for manipulation, for grooming that other person. And then if that person leaves, they go and they like something completely different and say, oh, I didn't like that. Okay, so there's a difference here than someone just being like, oh, this is new, I like this. A narcissist a lot of times will come in and be like, oh, you like that? I love that too. And then they go out and listen or watch to it because they don't even know anything about what they're talking about. They're just using it to be able to build a mask. It's a way to build a connection really fast. When you find someone that likes something that you like, you're like, oh my gosh, so we have so much in common. When in reality, you might not have anything in common, they just made it up. Narcissists also create a bond using your insecurities and your vulnerabilities. Sometimes they'll do it on the aspect of wanting to mirror you and look the same. Like, I struggle with that too. That's something that I need to work on too. Like, that's something that's going on in my life too. Sometimes they'll do it with vulnerabilities. They're showing you things in the past that made them look and feel and seem like they were actually being vulnerable. But in reality, it was just a manipulation to make you think that they had sympathy and empathy. Another thing that they do in the grooming aspect is the idea that they've never felt this way before, where they use a bunch of lies to say, oh my gosh, we're perfect together. We're soulmates. Like, we've never been this close before. I've never been this way with anybody. This must be the perfect person. This must be the one. So when we're talking about like grooming, Like, it sounds bad, right? Like, grooming is not a good concept. It's not something that, is good for a person to do. Of let me groom you to be a certain way. Let me make you subservient to me. Let me groom you so that you're stuck in this relationship in a toxic way. So as a narcissist, you're not really thinking of the concept of grooming or developing someone to be the way you want them to be. It sounds different a lot of times in your head. It sounds different a lot of times in thinking like, how am I going to interact with this person? Let me groom them. Narcissist isn't thinking that. Typically, it's like, maybe this will be the perfect person. Maybe this person will actually know how to work with me. Maybe this person can actually be the person that I want them to be. But at the same time, they're trying to build that person and make them. So grooming for a narcissist has to be disguised. And a lot of times I've said, like, the first person that a narcissist gaslights is themselves. They have to be able to say, hey, it is not me and it's not my fault. So as a result, I have to put everything else away from the idea that it's actually my fault. Narcissists will gaslight themselves into being like, okay, it's not grooming. They're not actually like consciously thinking this. I'm trying to break it down. It's not actual grooming. It has to be something else. Maybe it looks like love. Maybe it looks like a connection. And so the idea there is, let me go ahead and do anything I need to build a connection, to build an aspect so that I can get this person and keep this person, because that's what love looks like. There's different aspects. So like for me, there's a different aspect with love a lot of times being control. And a lot of that ruined a lot of the relationships that I was in because I viewed love being control. If I'm controlling, if I'm protecting, if I'm controlling what you do, where you say, where you go, the people you hang out with, then that is love. That is what love meant. And so a lot of times I put it through that filter, and I wasn't putting it in being like, let me groom this person or let me trauma bond them, but this is what love looks like, so I need to have this. I need to make sure that I connect with this person in this way. Narcissists also want to be able to have a trauma bond to lock people in. Again, they're not going through life thinking like, let me trauma bond this person. They're just thinking, let me not be alone. So as a result, I'll do anything I can to not be alone or to make sure I've got someone else lined up. So if I am alone, I'm not alone because I can get someone else. A lot of times a narcissist will latch onto someone in order to not be rejected. Maybe they want to spend 24/7 together. That way, that person doesn't leave. That person doesn't reject them of what's actually going on because they're madly in love. And then the narcissist starts to pull away because they're latching onto someone else. Sometimes the narcissist will keep a person just to make sure they don't feel the shame. We see this all the times in marriages when people are trying to get a divorce and the survivor is trying to get away from the narcissist and trying to get a divorce, and the narcissist doesn't want to get a divorce because it reveals the shame in their own life. So a lot of times they'll do anything they can, and even like the trauma bond aspect, the grooming aspect, the manipulation, they'll do anything they can to keep that person in their life so they don't have to deal with shame. A lot of times you also have a narcissist that's building a false connection. Okay, and with this, it's the idea of like, let me get connected so that either I feel better about myself, I can bring them down to my level, or I appear more human to everybody else out there. The problem is, it's not based on truth. And the trauma bond is not based on truth of what's actually happening. There's no truth underneath the issues and the situations that's actually going on in the narcissistic front. So as a result, there's no way to create a good, healthy bond. As a result, it becomes a trauma bond. As a result, you also are not sure who you fell in love with, who's actually there, what's actually going on. You see, a lot of times narcissists, when they go through the motions, when they're going through the aspects of building a trauma bond, they'll end up doing that to lock people in, to groom them to be the perfect partner, and to create a bond and a connection so that they don't have to deal with the fact of being alone. A lot of it comes back to the whole focus of it being on the narcissist and nobody else. So thinking through the idea of like, do they know they're creating a trauma bond? There's a huge aspect that no, because they don't view it as a trauma bond. They view it as a way to be able to lock in supply and make sure that this person doesn't leave them and doesn't shame them in the process. I guess another way that I would say it was they know they're building something in order to not lose people, gain supply, and control another person. But they're not going to view it or think of it in the aspect of building a trauma bond or anything negative in that light, because in that resolve, it would put them as being the bad person and would reveal a lot more shame in their life than what they actually want to deal with. So why did I stay with someone who had borderline traits? normally talk about how narcissists don't get trauma bonds at all, how they don't have any clue about those because they don't have the hope or the potential of that other person. But sometimes I think you can have remnants or pieces of a trauma bond with another person in the cluster B category. Of where a narcissist is looking towards another person, or a borderline's looking toward another person, like different things like that that I've seen and that I've also experienced making an aspect of a trauma bond. And I wanted to share some of my story of being with a person with borderline traits and some of the residual effects with that. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel, running Raw Motivations to promote awareness, growth, healing, and change, to try to help give a different perspective about narcissism and how it affects, how it destroys relationships, families, workplace scenarios, how it destroys a lot of different things. And until people are willing to get to the place of acknowledging the truth of the situation, both survivors and also narcissists, to get to the place of saying what is true and how do I actually live in that truth versus hiding from the shame versus hiding from the pain, all those different things happen. And I want to bring awareness to narcissistic personality disorder and how it's affected my life. So like I was mentioning, when we're talking about dealing with narcissists, we normally say like narcissists don't really get a trauma bond, okay? Because there's not really that like hope or that potential that they're relying on another person or they're trying to invest anything in another person. And oftentimes they don't really deal with the cognitive dissonance of another person as much. They just deal with their own stuff and move on. You know, it's not really like, why do I even want that person? I'm just going to move on. Okay. I think there's an aspect that some of the stuff I went through with a person with borderline traits got me at least somewhat of an idea about a trauma bond. Not as much as everybody else, and not as much as you that have been through a relationship with a narcissist and had to break the trauma bond. I don't think I have it to that extent, but I think it is built and has brought more of an awareness and an idea of how it affects by how it affected me. So when we're talking about this person with borderline traits, this was an affair partner. This is a person that I worked with. That I worked with one-on-one, that we interacted a lot at work, pretty much every single day, every like 5-6 days a week kind of thing at work, would interact, would see this person. Same time, my wife worked at the same location. It was something that she knew, she interacted, but it was always hidden. It was always under the guise of a lot of other different things, a work thing, a helping thing, all this different type of stuff. And there wasn't that truthfulness of like, wait a second, there's feelings, this is going on, like, et cetera, et cetera. Getting together with this person ended up being under the guise of like helping them with things, helping them with their life, helping them with different pieces of the puzzle that they were trying to fit together of just work, of life, of all these different things. As a result, it started the regular like scheduled program of the cycle of idealization, of pumping that person up, of love bombing them, giving them, grandiose gifts, giving them big stuff for Christmas, and then explaining it away, telling my wife that she was paranoid, like it's not that big of a deal, saying that like I split gifts with other people, like all different types of things to try to make it seem like, hey, it's fine. It's not that big of a deal, when it was in the semblance of building that relationship with that person. Well, the affair started to ramp up. And it started to ramp up in meeting and inside, outside of work. It started to ramp up as far as like communication. It started to ramp up emotionally. It started to ramp up sexually, like all these different things. But at the same time, it started to ramp up on her side on people that she was with. So affair partner, like, that's wrong. I get that. I understand. I'm not saying it's right. But then also on her side, when we're like together and supposed to be whatever commitment that was actually there, which neither one of us should have expected anything. But there was also that, okay, I'm going to be with you, and then I'm also going to go out and be with all these other people too. Okay? Totally get that. Totally understand it. Just trying to lay the stage before people like come attack me of like, why should she be faithful? I'm not saying that. Okay? I'm just saying that's what it was. She would say, and come back together, that she loved me, and that she cared about me. She wanted to spend her life with me. Okay? But kept lying about what was actually real. The hard thing was, like, I could sense a lot of times when she was lying. I could sense a lot of times when she wasn't being forthcoming and she was leaving something out. And then later, over a period of time, then she'd come back like a month later and be like, actually, I didn't tell you the truth. Actually, this is what happened. Actually, I was with you sexually, and then I went out and I was with another guy sexually. Like, but it's no big deal, okay? Like, there was all this kind of stuff, and it was like putting me like up and down. It was doing the same exact thing of the highs and lows, and I was just like, I'm getting like pissed off of this. And I would get upset, and I would start to get mad at her. We'd go through this big, long argument, and then I'd find myself getting to the place where I'd start to apologize because I'd pushed her so far away that she was getting ready to walk away, and I'm like, wait a second, come on back.
And so that push and pull started happening on both sides of the equation, making it very confusing on both parties of what's actually going on. There's the idea of like, I didn't want to lose that person. I didn't want to lose that like emotional and sexual connection that we had. I wanted to be able to invest in that person because I didn't want to invest in my wife. I didn't want to invest in anyone else. I wanted this person. I was like, this person's mine. So I want to keep holding on to her. But got to the place where continued to get further and further in that relationship and getting more and more pressure to expose it and to be like, hey, this is what's happening. Like, let me go ahead and divorce my wife, like all that kind of stuff. And she got to the place where she was pressuring me a lot to leave my wife. And so I was like, okay, fine, let's get to the place. I'll just tell my wife and then maybe she'll leave. Maybe she'll be done with me. She can wash her hands of me and then I can go be with this person. And then I don't look like the bad guy. That's why I make a lot of videos talking about narcissists at the end of a relationship or narcissist wants you to leave. Because a lot of times they do, you just don't realize it. Well, the thing is, I ended up telling my wife. And I'm going to tell my wife about that affair, that current affair, plus several others all at the same time that she had no clue about. She had an instinct, but she didn't have a clue about. And at that point, she didn't leave. She did leave later, but at that point, she didn't leave. I stayed in the cycle of what I'm doing, interacting. The sexuality and the emotion went down some with that person, but I kept going through the same cycle of wanting another person. Of wanting to be with someone else. If I can't be with that person, let me go find another person, and wanting that cycle to continue. One of the things that was interesting in this whole dynamic and in this whole relationship was how this person, the borderline, interacted with my wife after they all knew about each other. There was a lot of like crazy like enmeshment and like communication pieces and people still talking to each other and stuff like that instead of just like a clean break of like, okay, we're done. And oftentimes that was like the drip truth of like, oh yeah, this happened. Oh yeah, this happened. Oftentimes it was communication between all three of us, triangulation between everybody. Like it got really, really crazy and really, really bad. This is why it's taken over a year or so for me to actually make even a video on this. Okay. Borderline girl got to the place that I remember sitting on the couch, watching her communicate to my wife. She looked her in the face and she said, I know what I did. And I didn't care. And I'm not sorry for what I did. And there's kind of like a moment of like understanding like, okay, like that didn't even register as being a bad thing of like being with me because I'm married. I mean, it was my fault. I pursued that. Okay. I'm not putting blame on anybody. I'm just saying this is like the actual words verbatim what happened. I know what I did and I'm not sorry for it. Well, the thing that a lot of people don't know is then the cycle continued one more time. The cycle continued one more time where I started another affair with another person. And I remember that moment, and she came over, borderline girl came over, sat on the couch. There's an L-shaped couch. She sat over on one side of the L. I sat on the other side of the L. Wife is actually like in the corner of the couch. She sat there and she looked at me and she was all pissed off that I cheated after her. And the thing that she said when she looked at me and she was like, you couldn't have at least come back and cheated with me, but you had to go cheat with someone else. She was like, how could you do that? How could you go and cheat and not come back to me? And she got really pissed and really upset in a moment that she actually got up from the couch and she took a step towards me. And I'm sitting like on the edge of the L-shaped couch. And whenever she did, I didn't like jump, but I just like kind of like pulled back a little bit. And when I did that, almost like a small flinch, when I pulled back from her starting to step from the other side of the couch, she stopped. She looked at me and she got kind of like a smirk on her face. Then she looked at me and she said, you thought I was going to hit you, didn't you? And I shook my head, yes. And she smiled a little bit in kind of a creepy way. And she was like, this actually feels kind of good to have control over you. And then after saying that, she proceeded to walk over and give me a hug. And then she left. You see, part of the reason that I stayed with that person for such a long period of time is because I was so screwed up in my own logic and my own thinking that I was thinking that this person would actually be the person that would fill my void or that would fill something that I was lacking, that would be a better partner than my wife, that would be a better partner than someone else. And so as a result, I kept wanting to go back. After I confessed to see if my wife would leave, after I confessed, it was another 10 months before I finally got it through my thick head that I needed to block that person and not have any more contact with her. The like in-person cheating stopped, but she was still in our lives. She was still communicating to all of us. She was still in our house. We were still working in the same place. There was still a lot of overlap and crossover. And it took a long period of time before I got to the place of acknowledging the truth about me, the truth about my shit, and the truth about her. To get to the place of saying, hey, I need to break free from that person. I need to break free from my cycle. I need to get into therapy. I need to work on myself. I need to start developing a system to be able to keep me sane, healed, healthy, happy, and on the right path versus the toxicity that I've been in for so long that I feel like that's just normal, that I just crave. And got into therapy, was in therapy for a period of time. My wife left, continued in therapy. My wife ended up coming back. I had changed behavior by that point when she came back. There's a lot of different things, and a lot of different things I don't even have time to tell you all, okay?
You've been told it's all your fault, and that makes you feel crazy. No one understands you, and that leaves you in a place of being alone. You've tried to break free multiple times, and that leaves you helpless because nothing you've done has actually worked. It hasn't actually got you free or liberated from this toxic relationship. So you feel crazy, alone, and hopeless. Guess what? That's a lie. Because all it is how you've been raised and conditioned inside of this abusive relationship over and over. And as a result, you've sacrificed your growth, you've sacrificed your worth, and you've been trapped inside of a toxic relationship. What if I showed you the path to freedom? A way for you to actually get free mentally and emotionally from the toxicity that's happening right here, right now. You deserve more. You deserve to be able to heal. And I want to help you with that. If I can help you with that, go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough, schedule a call there, and let's talk. You're in a relationship and you feel stuck. Almost like addicted, going back to that person over and over. You're not sure, how do I get out? What is going on? Why do I feel crazy? Why do I feel obsessed? Why do I know that this person is toxic for me, but I still love them, I still care about them, I still want to be with them, even though they hurt me? Today we're going to talk about the trauma bond. I'm breaking it down to have you understand what it actually is, why it actually matters for you to know this, and what to be able to do to be able to move through it. So what is the trauma bond? When we talk about trauma bond, I want to break it down in a small sense just to give you a quick idea. Trauma bond is this idea of an addiction to another person. This is what it feels like. It feels like an addiction to another person, oftentimes resulting in this like pain of like, I don't know what to do without this person. Sometimes we'll see pieces of codependency come out of it. We'll see this different pieces of attachment come out of it. See all different types of things. But if you lump it all together, I want you to kind of just consider with me for a moment this aspect of addiction. Okay, addiction to another person. Now, this person could be hurting you, could be belittling you, could be putting you down, could be making you feel completely insane, but there's still this, I still want to be with them. I still want to interact with them. I still love about them. They're still the father of my child. Like, I still want to connect with them. And it makes sense because of all the amount of time and investment that you've put into this person, all the love and the care that you put in this person, and it still leaves you stuck and hurting at the same time. What does the trauma bond look like? Okay, I break it down this way. Hope and potential is number one. Hope and potential that this person is going to change. Like you keep hearing him say, I'm going to get better. You keep hearing him say, I'm sorry, I'm going to stop doing that. You keep hearing him say different things, but you don't actually see any change. But what it does is it locks you into this hope idea of thinking maybe this will happen. Maybe there's a possibility that it could end up changing, that we could end up getting back to the version that we used to be, the connectedness, the love, the aspect that he made me feel like the best thing ever. Maybe we could actually get back to that. And the thing is, this maybe sells you into a possibility. It sells you into this concept that something could happen. This is the same thing that will bring about this addiction piece that you see in people that like to gamble or even drugs, of looking for the next high, or someone who's like playing the lottery, looking like there's a possibility, let me just try. And that trying has them try over and over and over again because there's just a slim chance of there being a possibility of reward at the end. People will work a ton harder for a possibility, for a chance for something to possibly work out than they will for a sure thing. And the hard part is when you mix in love and care and affection and abuse and all these different things, people work harder and harder to get that validation, to get that approval, to help them continue to grow into a connected relationship. The hard part is if the other person not invested, You're just looking at potential. Potential is someone that's just sitting there and they have this idea, they have this concept, they have this piece of their life that could be maximized, that could grow, that could be amazing. And you're like, I see it. Can you not see it? Like, I see it. I see how you could be great in business. I see how you could be great as a great dad. I see how you could be great as a great husband. I see how we've been great together. Why can't you see it? And you take your time and your energy to try to convince and tell this person, hey, this is what I see. But they don't seem to get it. And it doesn't seem to change anything. And so this piece of hope and potential are the first things that lock you into the piece of the relationship. Then you move into the aspect of cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is where you are stuck in between a rock and a hard place. Now, this rock and a hard place might be, if I make this decision, I'm going to get abused. If I make this decision, I'm going to get yelled at. If I make this decision, I'm going to get the silent treatment. If I make this decision, I'm going to hear about it for the next week. If I make this decision, I'm going to be in trouble. So it could be like that, of like, I don't know what to do. Cognitive dissonance leaves you in the middle of a rock and a hard place between two opposing ideas, two opposing thoughts. The easiest way to break this down is, what do I actually believe? Do I believe his words, or do I believe his actions? Which one do I actually connect with? Which do I actually go towards? Which do I actually adhere to? And the hard part is when you have two opposing thoughts, oftentimes a person comes up with a third thought to make it seem justifiable. Well, he's just struggling with his communication. Like he's just going through a hard time. Like he's just emotionally immature. And as a result, he just hasn't grown past this yet. We just haven't figured it out. We just have communication problems. And oftentimes when you look at that at a glance, it seems like it could be a real possibility. Until we start looking at the actual facts of the situation and realize it doesn't even match up. Even if he is emotionally immature, the aspect of what are the facts of how he's treating you, he's abusing you. He's being rude. He's being mean. He's belittling. He's discounting your feelings. He's yelling. He's screaming at you. He's gaslighting. He's doing all these different things. These are facts. But oftentimes we want to justify it and be like, no, it can't be that. It can't be that. Cognitive dissonance inside of a romantic relationship oftentimes looks one of three ways. One of the ways is, well, to lay it out first, like the cognitive dissonance piece in a romantic relationship. Think of it this way. Think of the person that says they love you, looking at you and saying, hey, I love you, and then slapping in the face. I love you, and then slapping in the face. I love you, and then slapping in the face. Think of that over and over and over again. This is what's happening in the toxic relationship. This is what's happening on a day-to-day basis for you, where his words and his actions do not match. And over a period of time, it will start to sell you into a certain lie, into a certain belief that will leave you stuck. One of those lies would be this aspect of worth. And you start to tell yourself, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough because of how he's treating me. Because he says he loves me, but he's hitting me. He says he loves me, but he's abusing me. So it must be me. It must be that I'm not good enough because of how he's treating me. That's one of them. The other one is the aspect of like, this must be the price that I have to pay. When you drive and you get to an interstate that has a toll road, you're like, well, this sucks. Like GPS didn't route me a different way. I guess this is just what I have to do. Whether you like toll roads, whether you don't, either way. And you have to go through this toll to be able to pay a price, to be able to pay whatever tax or levy on the road, to be able to maintain the road or whatever else they use it for. And you go through because you're paying a price to be able to move from point A to point B. And so you think inside the toxic relationship, this is just the season of life I have to go through. This is the things I have to give up or have to change about myself or I have to pay to survive, to get to the love that's there, to get to the version of us that actually was connected, that had that hope, that had that potential. And you start to sell yourself into the idea thinking, this is just the price I have to pay. This is the toll I have to go through in order to get to the version of us that I used to have. The version of us that we used to be. So you sell yourself into that. And with this cognitive dissonance piece of, I love you, and then slaps you in the face, I love you, and slaps you in the face, it starts to tell you these things that this is all you're worth, that this is the price you have to pay, and that this is what love is. Oftentimes having you think this is the version of love that exists. Maybe you're already predisposed to this because of your upbringing, because of your childhood, because of the parents that you had in your life that didn't give you love, that didn't give you attention, that didn't give you affection, that gaslight, belittle you, and put you down because they were narcissistic as well. And then you move into this relationship and you're like, oh, this feels normal. This feels like home because it's what you think love is. And it's a difference in the description, the definition of love, but for you it seems normal. All of these are different pieces that I'm trying to paint the picture of cognitive dissonance, of how it leaves you stuck in the toxic relationship. And the last thing I'd say about the trauma bond, you've got the hope and potential, number one. Number two, you've got the cognitive dissonance. Number three is you've got intermittent reinforcement. This is like the glue that keeps you stuck. This is the stuff that keeps you coming back over and over and over. This is the stuff that keeps you stuck in the toxic relationship, thinking that the hope and potential is going to work and thinking and justifying on the stories you believe. Because the intermittent reinforcement is not just the good and the bad times, but it's the highs and the lows. It's making you feel connected and pulling back. It's pushing you away and bringing you back in. It's a dance. It's a game that the narcissist plays with you to mess with your emotions, to mess with your mind, to break up and to hoover you back, to push you back and forth, to get you to a place where you're like, and it leaves you stuck. And it leaves you addicted. And it leaves you feeling obsessed. Sometimes even after breaking up from the relationship or getting out of the relationship, you still going back over and over and over again. So what do we do about this? How do we actually work through it? The first aspect is being able to look and address simply at the facts. The facts start to break down the cognitive dissonance, which starts to break down the trauma bond. The facts have to be clear. And as you sit down, you start to write out the facts. You're like, what is the facts of the situation? This is how he's shown up. This is what he's done. This is what he's told me to do. I've done these things and it hasn't changed him. These are the facts. And as you get with those facts, you start to look at them. You're like, okay, do these facts actually justify the story that I'm telling myself? That idea that maybe he's emotionally immature, this is the price I have to pay, this is the thing I have to go through. Do these facts actually validate it? And you look at it and you're like, it doesn't feel like they do, but they kind of do, but they kind of don't. Go back to the facts. If you can, take like your logic hat, put your logic hat on, put your emotional hat to the side, just for a couple minutes. And go through factually, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. How does he demonstrate love? How does he demonstrate care? How does he demonstrate respect? How does he demonstrate honesty? Yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. To get really clear on the facts. This is just to give you the awareness piece. This is just to open up your eyes of what might actually be true, what might not be true. And then we sit with it and we have to look at it and you're like, okay, this is what's going on. Man, I don't feel good about these facts. And this is the crucial point, because at this point, this is where we've run into with cognitive dissonance, where we're like, we'll come up with a different story. Take a pause and be like, wait a second. These are the facts. I don't like these facts. What do we need to do? At this point, you might be wondering, like, I have no clue what to do. I just identify that that's where I'm at. That's where I'm stuck. I want to encourage you that what we do at this point is help you change the story that you're telling yourself. The facts will set you free. But we have to know the facts. We have to see how you feel about them, and we have to make a decision for you to choose a different path than what you've chosen. For you to choose a different reality than the one you're believing that's not validated by the facts. This is how we help people rewire the story that they believe, the story that leaves them stuck in the toxicity, and ultimately get them free from the toxic person, mentally, emotionally. What is making up the piece of the trauma bond that keeps you stuck in a relationship. So all that to say, how do we break it? How do we work on getting rid of the trauma bond on a daily, consistent basis so it no longer has power and it no longer has a hold over you? This goes back to dealing with something that we call a trigger. Now, a trigger for you can be anything. It could be hearing a song, it could be watching a movie, it could be seeing the way someone stands, it could be hearing a phrase, it could be seeing his car drive by, or a car that looks like his. If we could go into a restaurant, there could be millions of things that are triggers. We all have triggers. And that trigger, when it goes off, actually starts to tell you a story. Do you feel like you're stuck in a toxic relationship? Maybe you feel like you're with a toxic person or you're with a narcissist and you keep going back over and over and over again. So many times we see people that they get out of the relationship, they leave the relationship and they're like, phew. And then a couple months later, they're back in it. And they're like, I don't even understand. Why am I back in this? Like, why am I struggling with this so much? You might be dealing with this concept called a trauma bond. Now, the trauma bond sometimes will just make you feel crazy. It will make you feel insane of wondering, what is wrong with me? Why do I keep going back to this person? Why do I keep wanting to interact with this person? Like, I know that he's toxic for me, but I still want to see him. I still want to interact. I still want to go back. I still want to be a part of his life. I still want to check on social media. I still want to figure out what he's up to. I still want to see what is going on. Then there's a piece about the trauma bond that looks like an addiction model, that looks like you're addicted going back to the person over and over and over again. There's also a piece of it that leaves you with no peace, even though while there's peace. Know what I mean by that? It might mean that you're even out of the relationship. Like you've called things off, he's broken up, you've left, whatever it might be. You're out of the relationship and you're like, whew, at least I have some peace because this person isn't actively abusing me. But you don't feel peaceful. Countless times we've heard this from different survivors getting out of narcissistic relationships, and they're like, but I don't know what to do now. I don't know what to, like, how to connect, how to heal, how to grow, all these different pieces. Because a lot of times people are stuck in the trauma bond. What's the other aspect of the trauma bond? A lot of times the trauma bond would look like rumination. As you leave and you get out of the relationship and that person is still living rent-free in your mind, and you're like, I don't know how to get him out. Like, it just won't stop going through. I keep replaying the good moments, keep replaying the things that happened, keep replaying maybe I could have done something different or better, and it leaves you stuck. And so many times people are stuck in a trauma bond for a long period of time. Really quick, I'll give you an idea of what does not fix a trauma bond. First one, time. The old adage, time heals all wounds, does not apply when we're talking about a trauma bond. I've seen people a year out, a year no contact, 3 years no contact, 5 years out from the relationship and still have a trauma bond. They still have this regret. They still have these ideas. They still have these thoughts that are pulling them back, rumination or physically back to that person. And they feel crazy because like, I don't understand. Why is this happening over and over and over to me? Part of it is they're dealing with the trauma bond. And it's not just time that fixes it. The second thing that doesn't always fix it is no contact. Now you're like, wait a second, you tell us to go no contact. Yes, because no contact is key for your healing. But no contact alone will not fix the problem. You go no contact with a narcissist, it does not mean at all that you will break the trauma bond. There's more to it than that. So it doesn't just take the no contact, it doesn't just take time. And the other thing, the third thing that it doesn't just take is education. Now, it's important you get educated, but understand the flip side. You can have all the education about narcissism and still be trauma bonded and still be stuck. As you're hearing me talk about this, is this you? Right here, right now. Like, if so, leave a comment down below so other people know that they're not alone. Now, I'm going to walk through some of this video, walking you through the process of breaking a trauma bond. If you want to speed this up and you want to talk to me one-on-one, be like, hey, what are the exact steps that I need to take as I go through this? Then talk to me at rawmotivations.com. Like, this whole piece of breaking the trauma bond is one of the key and the most pivotal pieces that you will ever understand in getting out of a toxic relationship. But the hard thing then is that it's going to take work. It's going to take time and effort and an investment in you to work on you on a daily basis to be able to help you to change the story that you believe. Well, how do we deal with the trauma bond? First off, you need to know what it is. Trauma bond, first off, is built off of hope and potential. Hope that the other person is going to change. Hope that the other person is going to get better. Hope that they'll come back. Hope that he'll actually make it work. Like all of this hope, like I hope this will happen. And then you see the piece of potential, and potential is telling you, wait a second, he has a lot of potential. Like I've seen it. Like if you just get these few things right, there would be so much good that come out of this relationship. We have so much potential as a couple. Like I've seen it. Like, we've been great. We've worked well together. We've done all these things together, and we could be so great. And it locks you into this idea of this hope and this potential that locks you into a possibility. Now, when I talk about possibility or a maybe, people work really, really hard for something that's 100% not sure. This is why you have people addicted to gambling, playing the lottery, different pieces that do not have a sure outcome, but have a hope, that have a possibility of something actually working out. They did a study, and if you don't believe me, it's in the Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist by Debbie Mirza, where they worked with monkeys. And they worked with monkeys over and over, kind of like Pavlov's theory, where they got to be able to see that really the big piece in dealing with monkeys was their anticipation level to getting a treat. However they ran the experiment, it got to the place where like their anticipation levels rose to the level of someone being addicted to cocaine because of the possibility of something actually happening. You get to the place where you start to be addicted to a toxic person because of the possibility that they might change. Because they've told you they're going to change about 325 times. They just haven't done it. But this hope, this potential, possibility, the maybe gets all wrapped up and gets you stuck for a long period of time thinking maybe they'll change. Maybe they'll come back. Maybe it'll be different. Now, the other thing that makes up part of the trauma bond is the cognitive dissonance. I kind of touched on this earlier, but cognitive dissonance is the idea of holding two opposing thoughts at the same time. Do I believe his words or do I believe his actions? Like, do I believe this or do I believe that? Or you could be in that high anxiety state of like, wait a second, do I make this decision and get yelled at or do I make this decision and get the silent treatment? Like, which do I actually do? And this back and forth will put you in the state of like limbo that typically will immobilize you and will leave you in the aspect thinking a couple things. And the first one that you might think is this is what love actually is. This could be predisposed from your childhood, from growing up with your parents, from growing up in your religious organization, your education, the people, the previous relationships you've been in. All these things will get you to the place thinking, oh, this is what love is supposed to be. This is what it looks like. Or it could be the second aspect, which is this is all that I'm worth. Like, even if I went to a healthy relationship, this is all that I would get. It wouldn't get any better. Or you get to the place of this is just the price that I have to pay. This is the toll road I have to go through to get to the love. Like, this is just a rough patch. This is just a communication issue until we get to the place where we can actually be connected, be loving. And typically what happens is people struggling with cognitive dissonance, they get stuck for such a long period of time, they will not move. They will not leave in the relationship. The last thing that makes up the trauma bond is the intermittent reinforcement. Think of it a wave monitor, ups and downs, the highs and the lows of the relationship that keep you stuck. It was all good, it was all bad. It was good, it was bad. It was great, it was awful. He loves me, he hates me. We're together, we're not together, up and down. The push-pull in the relationship, back and forth. This a lot of times will predispose you to get to the place where you will always go back. Then they can do a reverse Hoover. They can just walk away and you'll keep chasing them, making them feel better about themselves because you're chasing them. All right, do you get where we're going so far? Do you understand the concept of the trauma bond? If so, leave a comment down below of like, this is what it is. The hope, the potential, the cognitive dissonance, the intermittent reinforcement. Like, that is what is making up the piece of the trauma bond that keeps you stuck in a relationship. So all that to say, how do we break it? How do we work on getting rid of the trauma bond on a daily, consistent basis so it no longer has power and it no longer has a hold over you? This goes back to dealing with something that we call a trigger. Now, a trigger for you can be anything. It could be hearing a song, it could be watching a movie, it could be seeing the way someone stands, it could be hearing a phrase, it could be seeing his car drive by, or a car that looks like his, it could be going to a restaurant. There could be millions of things that are triggers. We all have triggers. And that trigger, when it goes off, actually starts to tell you a story. It puts you in a state of anxiety. It puts you in a state of frustration, of anger, of sadness, of guilt, all these different pieces. And when this happens, you get to the place where you start to believe an alternate reality than what is actually true. You've already done this in other relationships. You've done this with your parents, with religion, with previous partners, with friends and family, that you believe a certain perception, a certain story, a certain reality based on their experiences, based on what they've said. And so you need to understand you're creating and building these stories in your life 24/7. Who you are is just made up of the stories that you tell yourself, of what you believe in the moment about who you are. So the thing that we have to work on, the thing that we have to change is actually changing what's actually going on in your mind, and that's dealing with the triggers that gets below of what is the story that you believe. We teach this whole process of walking through, going into the trigger, defining the emotions, understand the feelings to get to the actual story that you believe. Then when we get to there, it's important that we get to there in that process. Then we have to take a step back and be like, hey, what are the truths about this? Like, what is the facts that support or deny this statement? And we go through and we list them all out. We write them down. We walk through it. And then we get to the place of saying, okay, now what is my new story? What is the story I need to build based on the facts, based on the truth of the situation? The truth is the only thing that's going to set you free. And so you start to look at it, you start to go through it, and you're like, this makes sense. Like, these are facts. I can't dispute these. These aren't just my opinions. These are actual facts. And you build a brand new story. That new story replaces the old story. And this is what we teach in depth when you work with me one-on-one or when you go through the clarity challenge. Like, this is what we teach because this is how we've seen it consistently break trauma bonds. So the question is, do you want to be free today? Here's the hard part. You can watch this video and you can break your trauma bond. You can work with me one-on-one and you can break the trauma bond. You can go through our clarity challenge and you can break the trauma bond. The difference between this video, working one-on-one, going through the clarity challenge, and you actually doing it is just you. You being willing to make the hard decision and to do what's required. Required for your healing. Required for your growth. Required for your change. Sometimes you might watch this video and walk away frustrated, be like, he didn't tell me how. I did. I walked through the entire thing. The entire model. The hard part is not the people that watch it, but the people that don't want to put in the work. It's hard. We recently just had a workshop in Orlando, Florida. Myself, Lee Hammock, Catherine. And going through the workshop, one of the last evolutions of the workshop was me walking people through this. Did it 2 times. And the second time we developed and we worked on it and came up with one story. Hey guys, Raw Motivations here. Wanted to come talk to you guys today some just about trauma bonds and triggers and how those affect our lives on a day-to-day basis and how they affect our lives in how to get out of them, how to work through them. So a lot of times I'm dealing with people who have been in a narcissistic abusive relationship or they've been with someone who's just completely toxic and they leave that person and they get to the place where they're starting to heal, they're starting to have growth, but then they start wondering and they start doubting, like, maybe I should go back to that person. Maybe I should go back with the person who abused me, who hurt me, who financially ruined me, who emotionally cheated on me. Like, whatever you want to say, like, a lot of times people struggle with that. And they'll struggle with the concept of maybe I need to go back because I didn't try hard enough, or I didn't do good enough, or maybe I could have done something better. And these things will start to war against people's minds, and they'll start to think like, oh, like they're going to change now. They're going to be different now. They're going to be better for the next person, and it's because of me. And there'll be all these doubts that sometimes run in through people's heads. And what happens is that starts running through people's heads and people start thinking from a feelings-based area. And over time, those feelings will take over and they will produce these fables, these stories, these thoughts that we tell ourselves on a day-to-day basis that often resonate deep below the surface of, I'm not good enough, or I should have tried harder, or they wouldn't have done this if it hadn't been for me, or it was my fault. And all these things that tend to hide underneath the surface, deep underneath the surface a lot of times, is what I work with people on a day-to-day basis to try to identify the triggers that they're feeling and to try to dig below the surface to figure out what's going on, to try to be able to help provide healing and growth opportunities for them. All right, so some of you guys have asked about me making a video about trauma bond and about like trying to like think through how to break free at times, or try to think through how to break free of these thoughts, of these feelings, of these triggers, of these things that keeps happening. So I want you to think with me real quick. Every day you're going to go through life and you're going to have different things that happen to you. You're going to have different things that you interact with that are going to trigger you. Now, it could be a positive trigger or it could be a negative trigger. The majority of times in talking here, we're talking about a negative trigger, some trigger that produces a response. It produces a response that you want to go back and be with the abuser. It produces a response that makes you feel bad. It produces a response that makes you want to run away and hide and not deal with the issues that are going on at hand. Either way, you're going to have a trigger that comes into your life. So when I work with people on one-on-one basis, we sit down and we start talking like, hey, what are the triggers that you have in your life? Okay, here's a trigger. We identify this is what the trigger is. Then we go a step further and we're like, hey, what are you feeling in this moment? Like just in general. It doesn't have to be right, wrong, and different. It doesn't really matter. It's just what in this moment are you actually feeling? What's actually bubbling up? What's actually your thoughts? What's actually underneath the surface a little bit of, hey, this trigger just happened. It's going to make you feel a certain way. And as we dive into that, we write down a bunch of thoughts, a bunch of feelings, and we just put them all out there. You try to get all your feelings out. And then the next thing we ask is, okay, now that we've identified some of the feelings, what's actually some of the emotions that are pushing those feelings, that are a little bit underneath? And so for that, I'm normally looking for 3 to 5 words, 1-word answers of different emotions that people are feeling. I can't always identify them, neither can other people at times. Sometimes we have to look at like a feelings wheel or emotion chart to be able to say like, hey, these are the different emotions. Which one do you relate with the best? And as we do that, we start diving underneath the surface just a little bit. What we're looking for is after you look at the trigger, you look at the feelings, you look at the emotions, you get down to a place a little bit farther down where you say, hey, this is the fable that I'm telling myself. This is the story. This is the thought that's running through my head. And it might be like, I'm not good enough. It might be, I could have done better. It might be, if I had set boundaries, then my narcissist wouldn't have cheated. Like, it could be anything and everything that people have in their minds that's underneath the surface. But oftentimes they don't know that right away. Oftentimes they don't recognize. You don't just walk up to someone and be like, hey, this is the story I'm telling myself. That's not something that you normally think of. So it takes time to be able to dig deep. Sometimes we'll go through the same process like 2, 3, 4 times even of the feelings, the emotion, the story, and then wait a second. Now if that story is there, how are you feeling about it? Emotions, the story. And we start getting a little bit deeper where people start realizing like, whoa, I didn't realize that was actually underneath the surface. I didn't realize that was something that I was struggling with or that I was facing in one sense. And so what we do is we focus on the triggers, and then we work on getting the feelings. As we go to the feelings, we talk about the emotions that are underneath, and then we go a little bit further and we define the fable. So the fable is the story that you're telling yourself. That's the story that you're actively saying on a day-to-day basis. And that story doesn't have to be right, wrong, good, bad, doesn't matter. But it has to be true. It has to be what you're actually telling yourself on a day-to-day basis when it comes to those triggers, those emotions, those feelings. So you've got the triggers, the feelings, the fable, and then we have to take a step back. Sometimes this is one of the hardest aspects in this process is taking a step back where we're no longer engaging with the feelings, we're no longer engaging with the emotions, and we're trying to look just from a 30,000 foot view to say, hey, what are the straight, hard, cold facts about the situation? Doesn't matter how you feel, doesn't matter any of that. It only matters what are the facts in the situation. So you might have heard the phrase before, the truth will set you free. Well, what is also true is truth is the same as facts. It's like real time, 100% honesty, 100% truth, 100% facts. When we're looking at the facts are going to be what sets you free. What sets you free, not from another person, but what sets you free from your mindset, from your limited view of the story that you're telling yourself that you're not good enough, or the story that you're telling yourself that it's your fault, or the story that you're telling yourself that you could have done better. All these things that underlie the surface have to be faced up with actual facts. So when we sit there and we look at your fable, we say, hey, what are the facts about the situation that either approve or deny of the fable that you just put? Now, those facts might 100% approve it, and then we go down a different route, or they might 100% deny it, and then we go down that route. More than oftentimes, what we realize is when people are thinking through life and from the feelings, from the emotional, from that thought-based section, a lot of times the fable that they're telling themselves actually is not true or has a lot of stuff that could be questioned with it. So we take that fable and we base it on the facts. We say, here's the fable, here's all the facts that actually go underneath it. Here's all the facts that either support or deny the fable that we just created. After we've done that, then it's time to be able to sit back and take a look at the honest truth of, hey, do these facts actually support the fable?
And a lot of times you'll have people kind of like sit back and kind of wait and be like, no, they don't. Because they start to see the truth of the situation. Because if you're in an abusive relationship, a toxic relationship, a narcissistic relationship, whatever it might be, you're in a fog. You're in a fog that you've been put in purposely so to confuse and just make you so that you do not know where you're going at all. And that fog is really hard to break out of. You can't break out of fog with feelings. You have to break out of a fog with facts so you actually know what's going on. So you actually have an honest idea of, hey, regardless of all the lies going on around me, the lies that have been put on me by the toxic person or the narcissist, this is actually what's going on. And this is what I need to hold on to. Because otherwise you'll get confused. They'll scream at you, then they'll say they love you. They'll yell at you, then they'll give you a hug. They'll berate you, and then they'll take you out to dinner and make it a romantic evening. It goes back and forth, and that dissonance is so hard for people to understand, and it creates a giant fog that they're not able sure of what's right, what's wrong, what's up, what's down, what's true, and what's false. So as we go through this, we take a look at the triggers, we identify the feelings, we dive a little bit deeper with the emotions, we identify the fable that we're telling ourselves, and then we sit back and we say, hey, how do the facts support or deny that? Then from there, we have to be able to see the hardest part, and that's the part of like rewiring your mind. That's the part of being able to say, hey, the facts that I showed don't support my fable. So I have to actually sit back and rewire my brain with rewriting that story to make a new story to be able to replace that fable. So when people realize like, hey, it wasn't my fault, or hey, the narcissist or the toxic person would have cheated no matter what I did because of their own decisions, no matter what it is, there'll be countless examples that you realize like, hey, that fable is actually false. And so you start to take that out one day at a time, and you replace it with that new story. You replace it with that story that's based on facts, not fiction, that's based on facts. And when you do that over a period of time, it slowly helps to like rewire your mind. So when you get triggered, you don't always just go to that feeling of, I'm not good enough, or it was all my fault. But you start to go to that feeling of understanding of, hey, this is actually something I've worked on, and I know my feelings are going to try to direct me the wrong way. They're going to try to direct me to something that actually is not true. That's false. So I need to change the story, and I need to say, hey, this is actually what's going on. And when I see people that do this day after day, time after time, trigger after trigger, and you're going to have lots of them, they start to see growth. They start to see healing. They start to see the capacity open up for them to be able to acknowledge what's going on around them, for them to be able to acknowledge the truth of the situation, and to be able to get healing and growth. It takes a lot of work. It's not easy. It takes a lot of work, that's for sure. If you like what you see here, or if you'd like to talk more, please go to my website, rawmotivations.com. You can click on one-on-ones to be able to talk. If you like what you see here, subscribe. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Would love to have you interact there, or listen to the podcasts, either on Spotify or Apple Music. Thanks so much.
How do you break the trauma bond? How do you actually break free from the mindset, from the thought process, from the rumination, from the things that keep pulling you back to a toxic person over and over and over again? This is a popular question that a lot of people ask, and a lot of people are wondering, how do I actually get free from this? How do I actually break the trauma bond so I can be free from the toxic partner that I'm with? Because even though I might be away from him, even for a period of time, he still pulls me back in. He still sucks me back in. He still hoovers me back into a toxic relationship. How do I actually get free? We started working with hundreds of different clients over the past couple of years of trying to understand the nuances, trying to understand the pieces. I understood it from the narcissistic perspective, but then how do we actually bring that to the table to help you get free, to ultimately help you change your mindset? And we started building this baseline process of walking through the freedom formula, of understanding how we can actually break it down piece by piece, of diving into your emotions, your feelings, the story you're telling yourself, the facts of the situation, and then ultimately get to the place of replacing it with the new story. This is the concept and the idea that we built the challenge on to help people break free. Well, one of the things that helps people break free and has helped me break free from the mindsets, from the limiting beliefs over the period of years has been this concept of stacking. Now, whenever I mention stacking, people are like, what is it? What does it look like? Where can I find it? And all those things, and we'll talk about that today. What stacking is a process of going through a back and forth, almost conversational style in an app that we use that actually helps you get to the place of being able to rewire the story that you believe. And I'm going to break it down today in 4 different points that I want you to understand of how we go through this process. Now, it looks slightly different when we're dealing into the software or you're texting back and forth with it, but I'm going to give you the overarching overview of it and how it actually breaks down. So stacking comes down into 4 different things, okay? And so you understand really quick, those 4 things are stop, submit, struggle, and strike, okay? 4 things: stop, submit, struggle, and strike. So what does that actually mean? First step is to stop. And this is where we take a pause. This is where you've been going through life thinking that life is working or not working in a certain frame of reference. So when I talk about stop, I just want you to stop for a second and be like, wait a second, my current frame of reality might not be what's actually real. It might not be actually true. You see, you are stuck in a frame of reality, in a certain viewpoint of the world, your perspective, the stories you tell yourself, the laws that have been imposed upon you by other people, the rules and the regulations that you grew up with or had placed upon you inside of the relationship puts you in this box, puts you in this prison, puts you in, this is the only viewpoint that I can see out in the world. And as we see this, people have to get to a place where they first stop and they wake up to this aspect of like, hey, something might not be 100% true in your life right now. The easy thing is that everybody watching this video, it's 100% true. There's something right now in your life and your viewpoint that is not true. But the hard part is you might not even know that because you haven't stopped long enough to be able to say, wait a second, something here might not actually be 100% true. Now, if you're in a toxic relationship, you're like, yeah, totally get that, because there's been a lot of things that haven't been true. Now, the hard part is still there's a lot of things that might not be true that you might be thinking, such as the stories that you tell yourself, your frame of reference about that other person. Well, if I would have done better, he wouldn't have left me. He left me because he didn't care about me. He left me because of all these things. And you start telling yourself a lot of different stories. If I was good enough, he would have still been here. If I would have given him more sex, then he wouldn't have cheated on me. If I would have loved him better, then this wouldn't have happened. And you start telling yourself stories. Because in your current frame of reality, in your current existence, those seem to be the most logical answers, the most logical thought process because of what's happened in the relationship. So the first thing I want you to do is just stop. Be like, wait a second, what I'm actually thinking, what I'm actually feeling might not be real. The second step in this process is called submit. And when we talk about submit, we're talking submitting to the facts. This is saying, wait, I understand that I currently live in a current reality, in a frame of life. I get that, okay? Now I need to actually take this and submit to what are the actual facts that are happening in my life on a day-to-day basis. What are the facts about the relationship? How is he demonstrating? What is he showing? How is he showing up or not showing up? How is this relationship working for us and helping me grow, change, and develop? Or how is it not working in the belittling and the yelling and the screaming and putting me down? So it's understanding. We have to actually submit to the facts of the situation. If you don't, you'll continue to live in a false reality, in fantasy land. Because you move into a place where you're like, I don't want to submit to these facts. This is the part that we talk about with radical acceptance. You have to get radically accepting of the truth of the reality of what's actually happening in your life. If you don't, you will continue to stay stuck. You will continue to stay manipulated over and over and over again. So we have to stop and submit to the facts of the situation. Then think of it this way. You take all of your facts and put them on one side. You take all of your other thoughts and your stories and you put them on the other side. And you take both of those and you sit down. And the third aspect is you struggle. You fight with it. That's normal. It's normal when we try to question our own reality, when we try to question what has been imposed upon you in the toxic relationship, for it to be a struggle. This is why when we help people rewire the story that they believe, they're like, it doesn't feel real. And I'm like, I get it. But look at where your story comes from. It is based on facts. They're like, I know, it just doesn't feel right. I'm like, I get it. It's not going to feel right beginning of time because you haven't done this before. You haven't walked through this process. So we move into struggle of dealing with, what do I actually believe in? Do I believe the stories that have been told to me for so long? Do I believe the stories that I've been telling myself so long? Or do I believe the facts? Do I believe the stories that I'm saying he just has struggle with communication? Or do I believe the facts of like, no, it has been abusive. And every time we've worked on communication, we're back in the same exact spot because he won't be willing to actually listen and change his behavior. The facts. But you have to sit down. You have to struggle with that. The fourth aspect that I mentioned is just a fancy word for action, but we call it strike. Stop, submit, struggle, and strike. Strike means we need to take action. For us, a lot of times it's helping you put in the news story into your life of understanding, hey, if I work on this news story, it will actually help me towards the direction that I want to live. It will help me live in the direction that I want to go in this relationship, not in this relationship, regardless of relationships. It helps me live as the person I'm called to be. But we can't do that if we're still believing stuff that's not based on facts. If we're still believing our version of the truth or his version of the truth, whatever it might be, if you're not believing the facts of the situation, then every action you take after that will have the wrong focus. It'll be completely in the wrong direction because you're not willing to address the facts. Now, this is the hard part that a lot of narcissists and a lot of survivors are very similar on. And that is to deal with the topic of truth in dealing with the facts. You see, a lot of people do not want to deal with the facts of the situation. So as a result, they run from it. A narcissist runs from the facts of the situation because they are revealing. They show them vulnerably. They show them exposed to the world of being the liars and the cheaters that they are. I speak that way because that's who I've been. So I need you to understand that they run away from it. I ran away from it for years. The hard part is getting into the world of coaching and helping other people. You start to notice that survivors run from the facts as well because it's too painful. Because what does that mean about me? What is wrong with me? Maybe there's something with my worth. So they want to run from the actual facts of the situation. And it perpetuates in both aspects, people that do not get real and people that do not get healing because they're unwilling to deal with the facts. They're unwilling to deal with their current reality. And as a result, they continue going down the same road over and over and over again. So, when you walk through this concept, when you walk through these ideas and these principles inside this framework, I want you to think to first stop about the reality that you're currently in. Be like, wait a second, let me just engage the thought that what I'm thinking right now might not be 100% accurate. What I'm experiencing right now might not be 100% accurate. Then we have to actually submit to the facts. What are the facts? What has been demonstrated in the relationship? What has been demonstrated in your life? What is working or not working in your body, being, balance, and business? What does this actually look like? How do you start moving forward from this? Then you have to struggle with it of like, here's the things that are here. Here's the actual reality. I don't like this. I would rather live over here. I'd rather believe this version of reality. I'd rather believe this version of myself, of the lies that I've told myself, of the stories I believe, of the lies that are getting placed upon me. I'd rather believe that because it feels easier. But in reality, it doesn't give you the freedom that you want or the freedom that you deserve. And so you stay stuck in a relationship for a much longer period of time than if you would understand if we start with the facts and we work through how you feel about them, we help you change the focus that you have to produce the results that you're actually looking for. And this is where we bring in the action, the strike, so you can start implementing the things you need to implement to become the person that you're called to be. This is one of the hardest things for people is dealing with the stories that they have in their head, or sometimes even finding the stories that they have in their head because it's hidden, it's sedated, they've been lied to, they've been pushed down, they've been belittled for such a long period of time. If you're at the place where you feel this way and where you're struggling with this, please reach out for help. We dive into this way more in depth and you get the stacking tool every single day when you join us. If you want to interact with me one-on-one, you can go to rawmotivations.com. You can grab a time there. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, rate, review, share this with someone that might be impacting their reality today to help them break free and help them ultimately move to be the person that they're called to be.